1 to 24 Runaway Homeless Youth Program expansion. I would like to thank the administration for the increase in the number of beds. It is to making sure that it's a much needed investment. Thus, I won't be yelling about it today. However, there are concerns that the increase in the number of beds is not accompanied by the increase in the current per bed rate of $45,000 to $55,000 as the cost of runaways, as the cost to safely and effectively run a program. We need to right-size the cost for the funding. It is truly needed and necessary. I'm happy to see that the plan included a restoration of $19.6 million, a one-shot funding for the Summer Rising program. This funding will extend the program hours for middle school student programs all across the school's districts. Unfortunately, this restoration does not account for the fact that the original PEG was baseline. For programming consistently, it's critical that we don't have to go through this process each year, and this restoration is made for all the years of the program's plan. I want to take a moment to note that I now currently have oversight over ACS, and I have a clear view of how we are failing our middle school students, because at this time we are seeing a rise in youth offenders in the juvenile justice system, and we are not seeing the investments that the young people themselves are asking for. What they are asking for are things like internships and jobs. We currently have a SYP program that has project-based learning and a $700 stipend, and a Summer Rising program that forces students to be in the classroom half of the day, which they have said. I hope that we can take time to think about how do we reimagine workforce development and programming for young people that they are asking for and not what we think that they need. DYCD is preparing a new procurement for Compass and Sonic after-school programs in the next year. Providers have expressed much concern to me about the funding for the existing capacity of after-school program, particularly related to the unequal base rates within Compass elementary and middle schools. I hope that during this hearing, DYCD will be able to provide the committee with details about the new procurement for Compass and Sonic after-school programs. We will all like to see, and we would hope that a new RFP will meet the needs of the CBOs to run an effective program. Another area of particular concern for me this year is the status of the federal funding. The preliminary budget includes $110.4 million for federal funding for DYCD in fiscal 2025. With all the edits being issued, the executive orders being issued by the Trump White House, we can never be sure of what funding is in jeopardy. But it is likely that some proportion of this funding will be reduced or eliminated. If the city is unable to secure this federal funding, DYCD would have a shortfall that we need to resolve in the future financial plans. We are also hearing that there have already been cuts from the federal government that will affect our RHY population, which would be stopping Section 8 and NYCHA access. I would like to hear, and I would like for us to work together to develop a plan for those young people to ensure that they have stable homes. The council will continue to champion programs for youth as a funding priority. The city should prioritize investments in DYCD programs that provide leadership, social, and workforce development tools for young people. The youth today are the leaders, entrepreneurs, and change makers of tomorrow. It is essential that this budget that we adopt this year is transparent, accountable, reflective of the priorities and interests of the council and the people we represent. I look forward to an active engagement with the administration over the next few months to ensure that the fiscal 2026 adopted budget meets the goals of the council has set forth. I would like to acknowledge, hold on, is somebody here? All right, well, none of them are here. All right, well, at this time, I will turn it over. I would like to take the time to thank staff. I would like to thank the A-team back in the district office, Sandra Gray, fiscal analyst, to the committee, Ali, the unit head, Christine Yamamenti, council committee staff, and Elizabeth Ars, policy analyst, to the committee. And at this time, I will turn it over to council to swear in the administration. Thank you.
Hi, good morning. Please raise your right hand. Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in your testimony before this committee and to respond honestly to council member questions? Keith Howard? Yes. Susan Haskell? Yes. Daryl Rattray. Angelina Martinez Rubio.
Yes.
Mike Bobbitt. Dana Cantelmi. Not here? Okay. Valerie Mulligan. Alan Chang. Jeremy Hallbridge. Felicia Thornton. Denise Ramirez. Erica Caraway. Is there anyone else that I didn't call? Okay, thank you. You may begin. Oh, what's your name?
Nivita Bailey, CFO.
Sorry?
Nivita Bailey, CFO.
Oh, Navita Bailey.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Can someone fill out a slip for her, please?
Did you guys have an extra copy of the testimony for me or no? I didn't get it. Oh, thank you. Oh, yeah, they're gonna tackle you.
Good morning, Chair Stevens and members of the Committee on Children and Youth. I am DYCD Commissioner Keith Howard, and I'm joined today by First Deputy Commissioner Alan Chang, Chief Financial Officer Navita Bailey, and Special Counsel Angelina Martinez Rubio. We are pleased to be here to discuss the fiscal year 2026 preliminary budget. Last year, DYCD served an unprecedented 480,000 New Yorkers, up nearly by 100,000 or 26% since the beginning of the administration. The year also saw another record number of jobs and some enrichment activities for young people, as well as targeted strategies to make the city safer and more affordable. This is largely due to the hard work of our dedicated nonprofit partners and our DYCD staff. Shout out to our DYCD staff, especially the ones in the room here today. In that regard, DYCD recognized challenges our partners face due to delayed payments. We are working diligently to review and approve financial transactions, provide training as well as revise and streamline our internal policies where needed to expedite processing. Where possible, we have worked with our partners to determine the best approach to address their immediate cash flow needs. We know more work is needed. We will continue to work with our oversight agencies and our partners to ensure that this work happens as expeditiously as possible. We also recognize that our partners and immigrant communities are fearful of federal law enforcement, and protecting the privacy and safety of those we serve is at our top priority for DYCD. In response, we've conducted a series of training for our nonprofit partners and DYCD staff on procedures developed in conjunction with our city partners for in-person interaction with non-local law enforcement. The trainings generated great interest with over 4,000 attending and participating in robust questions and answer sessions and follow-up inquiries. Our nonprofit partners with questions may call our staff. Additionally, DYCD recently established a hotline for our partners to call after hours to speak with a DYCD attorney. The preliminary budget builds on this progress by making investment in programs that help elevate the effects of poverty and provides opportunities for New Yorkers and communities to flourish. We are carefully monitoring the developments and actions in Washington, D.C., which can have a very serious impact. The budget, as you mentioned, stands at $1.2 billion. It is comprised of $90.07 in city tax levy funds, 0.16% in intercity funds, 6.24% in federal funds, and 3.51% in state funding. Part of this funding goes to one of our most treasured and successful programs, our Summer Youth Employment Program, SYEP. We are deep into our planning for the 2025 season, and I especially want to thank the Council for your strong support of this program. Last summer, New York City again provided 100,000 summer job opportunities for young people ages 14 through 24 at thousands of work sites across the city. We are also pleased that 30 City Council members hosted 124 SYP workers, and for this summer, we hope that all 51 will participate. Shout out to you, Chair, for making that happen. We released the 2025 SYP application for participants and work sites on January 21st, the earliest application release ever. With a focus on program quality, we believe this early release will give participants more time to prepare for their summer experience and give providers time to work with the NYC business and nonprofit community to develop additional work sites. Today, we have 25 targeted recruitment events in priority police precinct with the highest highest incidence of gun violence. We work with the crisis management group, service groups, and partnered with NYCHA so that applicants can make use of their digital van. The online application closed last Friday, and we are continuing targeting and recruitment to allow participants with barriers to employment the opportunity. This year, all SYEP participants will receive at least 2 hours of financial literacy education as required by Local Law 98. DYCD also launched a financial empowerment peer mentoring pilot in which selected Work, Learn, and Grow participants will take CUNY courses on financial literacy and serve as peer mentors during SYEP. Work, Learn, and Grow, a school year extension of SYEP, is now serving over 7,000 youth, its largest class to date, with more than 1/3 of enrolled youth residing in or attending schools in the 6 priority precincts identified in the Mayor's Blueprint for Community Safety. Also, for the first time, our CMS providers had the opportunity to participate in Work, Learn, and Grow, with 19 CMS groups enrolling over 330 participants. 38 Work, Learn, and Grow participants are serving as youth ambassadors to students in temporary housing with a focus on migrant youth. These workforce programs will soon be complemented with a new program the Mayor recently announced, the Community Resources for Employment and Development we call CRED. Extending DYCD's portfolio of workforce programs up to age 40, it will provide tailored support services, occupational training, and paid work opportunity to 1,500 underserved New Yorkers by fiscal year 2027. In addition to our SYEP planning, we are actively preparing for another summer of wide-ranging enrichment programs for the city's Summer Rising program in partnership with NYC Public Schools. Application for this summer opened March 4th and will close on March 28th, and we expect to again serve 110,000 elementary and middle school students and connect them with fun, hands-on enrichment experience to strengthen skills, develop interest, cultivate curiosity. Some example of the programming that will be offered include drama, yoga, community service, visual arts, sports, cooperative games, and more field trips. In 2023, we introduced Exploring Futures, a new feature of the program for middle school students to facilitate early career exploration aligned with their individual interests and passion. This program exposed students to a wide array of career paths, enabling them to navigate and explore fields that may have otherwise been unfamiliar to them. The program included visits to CUNY campuses, career-connected field trips, and workplace tours. We look forward to another year of this exciting program. The Office of Neighborhood Safety officially joined DYCD in fiscal year 2024. To prevent gun violence and ATLAS. These programs are aligned with DYCD's mission and improves community police relations and reduce crime, incarceration, and other contact with the criminal justice system. As promised, when I last testified, DYCD has worked hard to build support around the ONS team and CMS providers, especially around quality and oversight. DYCD has developed, 1, key metrics for systematic reporting on program activities and outcomes. 2, put in place a comprehensive monitoring system and regular provider network meetings for program oversight and coordination. 3, launched a structured implementation evaluation. And 4, continuously analyze real-time data from the NYPD to inform operations on the ground. Over the first year under DYCD, the Cure Violence providers conducted 15,000 de-escalations and mediations and supported an average caseload of about 1,600 participants at a time. Additionally, the transition to DYCD, ONS providers have access to the agency's $6 million of capacity building and professional development services for programmatic and organizational support. One highlight of our commitment to the professional development of frontline staff was through our Family Development Credential, our FDC program. During spring 2024, 15 credible messengers from ONS programs participated in the program, and all 15 pilot participants earned their credentials and received college credits. I am pleased that as part of the mayor's efforts to address homelessness, the budget includes $6 million to add 100 runaway and homeless youth beds to service homeless young adults, bringing the total number of beds to 913. Chair Stevens, this is a big win for you, the council, advocates, and all young people. We thank you for your tireless advocacy, as always. We look forward to briefing the council on how we are implementing and planning to roll out these new beds. Finally, at the State of the City address, the mayor announced that the city will double the size of the Fatherhood Initiative to reach 3,000 fathers in the coming year. As you know, the program helps fathers reconnect and build stronger relationships with their children through 1, counseling, 2, conflict resolution training, 3, mediation and mentoring. And as a dad, this is both professionally and personally meaningful, impactful. Shout out to my kids, Maya and Tyler. Thank you once again for the opportunity to discuss the preliminary budget. We are pleased to answer your questions. Let's do it.
You're trying to soften me, right, with the shout out to the kids. All right, I see what you're trying to do there. Got it.
I knew it would work.
Everybody knows I'm a softie for the beat. Well, thank you guys for being here, and I'm really excited to dig in. And I know you gave me a special shout out, but let's give you DYCD a shout out, because I know you guys can't come in here and tell me what you want, but we all know that you guys are excited to get those 100 beds, because you guys are the ones that we yell at. And so thank you to you guys, and we're really excited to hear about what those plans look like. I said out there this morning, you know, if I'm gonna yell at people, I also gotta give them their flowers too. And so we are a team, and this is a win for us. But y'all know I got bigger acts too. So now that we got the beds, I got some new acts. DYCD's $1.2 billion fiscal 2026 budget in the preliminary plan is $166.2 million, or 12% less than the fiscal 2025 adopted budget of $1.4 billion. The difference is mostly due to the $146.4 million, the council discretionary funding that was included at adoption. What metrics, if any, are used to determine the funding levels of each of the DYCD programs? What metrics, if any, are used to determine the funding levels of each of the DYCD programs?
Thank you, Chair Stevens. DYCD values looking at the quality and impact of our programs, and so we have different metrics, whether it be attendance, enrollment, outcomes for our programs. We are very invested in ensuring that we make sure that funds are spent well.
Thank you. I forgot to acknowledge my colleagues here. Sorry, guys, I jumped right into the questions. We have Councilmember Lee, Aviles, and Williams who are with us. DYCD preliminary plan included funding for 2 new needs. Did DYCD submit any new needs that are not included in the preliminary plan? If so, what were those requests, and how would that factor be included in the plan impacts and operations?
Thank you, Chair Stevens. So DYCD's ongoing conversations with OMB, we're constantly assessing our programs, but at this time, there were no additional new needs submitted.
None. Oh, well, maybe after this hearing, we'll have some new needs, right? Okay. The preliminary plan included an additional $325,973 for the Young Men's Initiative in fiscal 2026 for the men's program. Last year, at this time, the department reduced YMI by $200,000, stating that this decrease would not have an impact on programs. Why were the additional funding added to the preliminary plan? Did the reduction that was made last year impact programming? Are there any new shortfalls to the funding for this program? Welcome.
Good morning, Chair Stevens. So there are no shortfalls to our YMI portfolio. The additional funding is supporting some direction from YMI. Of course, as you know, YMI has a new executive director, James Stratford, who is from the Bronx.
Y'all really ain't here today working it, huh? Let me tell you. He was like, I think it's gonna be nice today.
And he's coming in with a really good vision of how we can evolve YMI programming to better connect to young people across the city. So everything from a college fair that had close to, I want to say 3,000 young people there about a week or two ago, to some other initiatives that we're rolling out.
Okay. I'm happy that we got some additional money for it this year. The preliminary plan included a restoration of $19.6 million in fiscal 2026, restoring the Summer Rising program pet in fiscal 2020. 2026 only. The original plan was a baseline reduction, but this reduction is only for 1 year funding. Why is the restoration not baseline? Has there been any conversations with OMB on what baseline funding for this program will look like?
So, as you know, the city is facing a number of different competing priorities. I think it's a testament to the administration that they ensured that the restoration happened early in the year so that the agencies and providers can effectively plan for this upcoming summer. But at this time, the funding is not baseline in our budget. And we're continuing to work with them to ensure that we can, if funding is baseline, it can happen early enough so that we can effectively plan for upcoming summers.
I know where we can get some money from. I mean, if you listen to the DOE hearing I had the other day, some money over there that we probably could use to run an effective program, but, you know, I think it's about $80 million over there that we could use. With the current change in the fiscal 2026 preliminary plan, do you feel DYCD has adequate resources to meet all the programmatic needs? I know y'all gonna say yes, but go ahead.
Hi, Chair Stevens. DYCD has the resources that it needs. I think that we're always in ongoing conversations with OMB. It is in the best interest of every entity of the city to ensure that agencies are appropriately staffed so we can deliver service. And so we continue to be in conversations with OMB.
Okay. The preliminary plan includes $110.4 million for federal funding in DYCD in fiscal 2025 and $105 million for fiscal 2026. What are DYCD's primary federal funding sources, and what programs and services do they support?
Our predominant federal funding source is REO, and we also get CSPG, which is a pass-through through the state. REO funds our in-school and out-of-school youth programming, and CSPG funds a whole host of programs with NDA, literacy, immigrant services, and so they fund a number of services through our agency. What I can also say is that we have not received any guidance from the federal government that there will be any impact to these services at this time, and so we are continuing as is.
But how are you preparing for it if it does? Because we are in a place where we have to prepare for the worst.
I understand that, but at the same time, there's so many unknowns. And so at this time, we're just trying to figure out what we can do to reinforce our existing systems, make sure that staff are appropriately prepared. But at this time, we really can't make that decision because if any cut happens, it's a citywide decision. It wouldn't really be the OSD. So we're doing all that we can internally to make sure that we are, our reinforcements and our foundation are strong so that we can effectively respond to whatever decision is made.
But, and so even while we're talking about the federal government, I know that I've been getting frantic calls and text messages around the Section 8 and the NYCHA access being cut to RHY young people. And so like, this is why that is federal, and this is why we need to prepare. So could we talk about how you're even preparing for that piece that is affecting DYCD participants, and this is gonna affect the program, and also how are you working with other agencies to ensure that young people can get access to things like City FAPS now that this is going to be a huge issue?
Well, all of those conversations are happening with OMB, because one of the things that in conversations with OMB is to understand exactly what the impact would be, and understanding that we have to continue to monitor and just really pay close attention to what's happening up in Washington, D.C.
I know, but this is according to the providers that they had a call with DYCD and they were told that this is happening. So how are we, because like even saying we're in conversation with OMB, like how are we preparing for this? This is in real time going to be affecting our young people if they don't have access, because we already did not have adequate access to the city FET vouchers, which if we would have implemented the city council's bill, that wouldn't be the case. But
and again, if we,
you know,
if we're in conversation with OMB and internally we are looking at the impact, and we do not want to minimize the conversation that is happening, especially on the ground with our partners in the nonprofit world. I have gotten calls as well. It's kind of hard to say this is going to happen when we haven't seen any evidence of it happening, other than
so you guys didn't have call
other than
providers?
the confusion that happened a month or so ago when emails or whatever went out. But there has not been any impact, to our knowledge, of any of our programs, as Navita Bailey stated.
So I'm confused because that's not what I'm hearing. Because I'm hearing that DYCD had a call with providers that this was happening, that this was being cut, and to say that it hasn't impacted them yet, okay, the call was, I believe it was relatively this week. So how are we preparing for what we said is happening? Because this is going to affect them.
So Chair Stevens, I'm going to defer to Deputy Commissioner Haskell, who can expand more on what is happening on the ground for the RHY providers.
All right, thank you.
Hi, Chair Stevens. You raise a good point. I think what Commissioner and our CFO are saying is this is a developing situation with federal funding. It's not clear. Navita mentioned uncertainty. It's not clear exactly what the impact is going to be. We are aware there could be impact to federal fundings like Section 8, housing choice vouchers for NYCHA, and all the support housing opportunities that we seek out for young people in runaway homeless services. We did flag for RHY providers this week that there could be challenges seeking support for housing assistance. But at this time, there's no impact to runaway and homeless services specifically, and we will continue to seek out all stable housing opportunities for runaway and homeless who are, in our programs.
Okay, this is why I get frustrated, because planning for something that you told providers and saying like, okay, we don't have the answers now, but let's move forward to think about a plan, that is all I'm asking. I'm not asking what's the impact. Obviously, there's no impact because we said it happened this week, but there is going to be an impact. And so how are we planning for this cut? It's going to happen, so what does the plan look like? Or you can say, we haven't started planning yet, but we are working on the plan. But I think that to say like there's no impact and try to emphasize on that, to me, it is going to be impact. It happened this week. And so we could acknowledge that there is going to be an impact.
Our communication with providers was flagging the potential for impact. We don't really know what the impact is going to be at this point. We know there's a potential impact to federal funding on vouchers, but we really don't have certainty on what that's going to be. So we're flagging for them. I believe we can share that there'll be a pause right now on housing choice vouchers, but there's no cut necessarily that we're communicating. We are still figuring out the full impact of the federal funding situation.
So are you guys looking to work with OMB to talk about the city FEPS voucher? Is that going to be an option? I'm just actually really just trying to push for us to make sure that we are thinking about what are the options and plans that we can put in place at our level, right? We cannot control what we cannot control. But for me, planning is the best solution for us to have moving forward because we know that there will be an impact. And when this administration was here last time, and I'm talking about the Trump administration because he was here before, RHY was hit the hardest. And so for me, I would like us to be over prepared because clearly we have to make sure that these young people are vulnerable. So, we know that this is a huge LGBTQ population. They're being attacked regularly. We know that a lot of these folks are immigrants that are coming here from other countries. So for me, this is a place where we have to overly be prepared and should be at the top of the bill because they're the most vulnerable at this moment. And so that's why for me, I'm like, what is the plan? And if we don't have a plan, then let's meet to make a plan because there's no way that this is not gonna be impact because if you're flagging it, that means we know this is something that's coming down the pike. And so definitely let's make sure after this, we set up some time to talk because I am very scared for our young people. And that was one of the things that I heard from the providers when this administration came back, that RHY was hit so hard last time. And Susan, you've been here, this was hard for us the last go around when this administration was here. So I want us to be overly prepared and think about how we can't pick up everything, but what we can, I want us to make sure we do.
So I just want to say that we are in conversations with OMB. They are the lead agency. They are the ones that are guiding us if there are impacts. But currently, those conversations with providers are happening in real time, but they are happening across the city. They're happening across the city. I am not saying that this is not concerning to us. Of course this is concerning to us on the highest level. But right now, we can only have conversations about exactly how do we maneuver, if we have to maneuver at all, because at this time, we don't see an impact.
So OMB is not the lead agency, you are. DYCD is the expert in youth development.
Talking about in terms of funding.
again, you are the expert, and I will not, because that's a problem. You are the lead agency on youth. You are the ones who need to tell them the things that you need to do your job. So they're not the lead agency, and that's that. And you can say
Chair,
that they
I
are.
said on funding.
Not even on funding.
Okay, we are the expert on youth development, community development, but on funding, it's O&B.
Again, you are the expert, and you tell them what you need to do the effective programming. That's the problem with the system. They are not the expert. You need to tell them the money, and they need to find the money, and that's the problem. We're always in these cycles because this agency is the expert, and you know what the people need. And so if we have people telling you, well, you don't need that for the kids, which is why we sit here and go back and forth. You guys are the experts. You guys have been in this work. You know the work. You're the expert. And I don't know why you want to argue with me
I'm not
about not being
arguing
the
with you.
expert.
I'm just trying to clarify.
That's weird to me, but
I'm trying to clarify. When we discussed over the
let's
over
agree
the
to
year,
disagree.
an
DYCD is the
investment-
expert, and I want that on the record, not
An
OMB.
investment-
And I'll tell Jock myself. So let's move on.
It's all good.
I don't know why you arguing me about that. Like you.
I am not arguing with you.
The plan includes funding for 600. I'm talking about headcount for 634 full-time positions in fiscal 2026 for DYCD, an increase for 46 positions from fiscal 2025 adopted budget. The department fiscal 2025 January actual headcount is 588. How many vacancies does the agency currently have?
Sure, I will take that one. Currently, we have 553 full-time staff on board, so roughly about 50, 60 vacancies.
What is the specific titles for the additional 46 positions? What programs are those positions allocated to?
So most of those are to continue supporting the ONS transition of those programs over to DYCD, and we also got some headcount in FY26 for the expansion in fatherhood and the RHY 100 beds.
Does the agency have adequate headcount to effectively run each of the programs and initiative?
Yes, we believe we do.
What are those vacancy positions that DYCD feels is adequate to be filled? If so, what positions are included in how many positions?
So roughly half of our vacancies and those additional positions are for admin support, so contracting, budgeting, legal, IT, and then the other half are direct program management.
What are some of the main challenges DYCD experiences in hiring new candidates?
In some of those positions, there is definitely a lack of qualified candidates, like in the IT area, even in finding lawyers. But for the most part, we are able to fill like our programmatic positions and some of the contracting positions.
So what does the recruitment look like for some of those more challenging positions?
Sorry, can you repeat that question?
What does like recruitment look like for some of those more challenging positions?
So the more challenging positions, we are engaged with, there's with the citywide hiring halls. We're also
Have those been effective?
we've gotten a few people from there. I don't have the exact number, but yes.
And so what are some of the other places that you're looking, especially, I think you said what, lawyers and the IT positions, those have been harder to fill.
We are also looking at working with me and other local colleges to find, upcoming graduates and graduates.
Have you looked at, like, especially with the IT, have we looked at some of the nonprofit agencies like Prescola? I know we do a lot of funding for them. Have you been working with them? Because I know that part of their program is also about hiring. Have we talked with them or?
Not that I'm aware of, but we definitely will look into that.
Yeah, I think especially a lot of the IT programs, I know that we fund on the council side, part of it is job development. And so we should definitely make sure that we're kind of connecting those dots. So after, we can definitely try to connect you with those agencies, those
Chair,
providers.
One of our great success is within our college aid program, how we bring in college students that transition into these professional jobs. Our IT department is one of the departments that hosts a significant amount of college aids, and then as they complete their education requirements, they transition into employment opportunities.
Yeah, I think that those are the places we should be going and starting. And I know specifically, and I even brought up Prescola, because like the council funds for them to train NYCHA residents. And so, I think that would just be a nice fit if they have young people that they, or not young people, but people in general, that they can recommend. And I know that they have a whole alumni base. DYCD, so this is some contracting issue. DYCD recently sent letters to Compass and Sonic providers requesting that they sign another contract extension based on contract rates that had not been updated since 2015. The use of the non-updated rates would continue to financially strain providers as the rates do not account for increased costs and the needs to provide continued services to after-school programs. Has there been any discussion with OMB to provide the release of a Compass concept paper and include a model budget that will increase the rates for providers with the RFP process?
We are in continuous conversation with OMB. We are in continuous conversations with our stakeholders. We are continuous conversations with our providers. As you know, Chair, the Compass program, after-school program, it's been 10-plus years since we've had a program model. I think our concentration is listening to the providers and having focus groups. One of those focus groups, we want to make sure that we are bringing in young people to be able to guide us on exactly what a new program model looks like. And then, of course, continuously hearing exactly what new services should be part of the after-school programming model. So those conversations are ongoing as we're trying to really get it right.
I don't think it takes 10 years, though.
Well, hey,
And this is before you, so.
this is before me.
And
but-
you told me, I believe at the last hearing, that y'all was gonna have it out by September.
Well, things happen.
I'm just saying,
And-
those out of
and-
your
and
mouth. You
comments-
said you was gonna have a RFP to me.
I hear you, and what happened is things happened, comments came back, program models changed, and investment. I mean, 10 years ago, we weren't talking about mental health and trauma.
We were.
In program models.
We
Program
were.
models. Consistently a uniform investment. And I'm not talking about referral services. I'm talking about having, clinical clinicians on staff as part of the program model. So again, those conversations are
But
happening.
what's the delay? So really, I think, obviously, I know, folks are like, okay, at least we have an extension. But what's the delay? Because 10 years is a really long time for a program to continue without any additional financial support. I mean, it's bad enough they get paid late, so I ain't even get there yet, right? And then we're giving them rates from 10 years ago. And I don't know if y'all know, eggs is like, what, $15 at this point? So I don't know how much crayons is at this point. So how are we expecting providers to have a rate from 10 years ago to be able to provide quality programming? So let's say we didn't say, all right, we didn't do the RFP, fine. But what are we doing about the rates? Because I think that's even bigger issue. Like, we want to get the program model right and all the things, so great, fine. How do we then make sure that the providers have the actual things that they need to provide the services that we know that our young people deserve and need?
Very good question. But we also need to shout out the $741 million that went into investment on COLA across the nonprofit network to help with
The COLA?
some rates.
Well, the COLA is to pay the staff because they're,
It's an investment. It's an investment in the
all
system.
right, so what about the other investments that we need?
Chair Stevens, we're working on it. I won't say that the money's there, but I think the commissioner made a good point that we recognize that salaries have gone up, cost of living has gone up, things have gone up. As you referenced, eggs have gone up.
I don't know, y'all don't
And
see,
so-
if y'all see the eye rolls that's behind y'all,
It's okay.
so many eye rolls. And because I think that, one, I think it's offensive to tell people that, oh, we gave you a cost of living adjustment, because it's not a raise. So that's kind of offensive, which is why I'm sure everyone was rolling their eyes like, please, right? And that is something they should have gotten anyway, that we had to fight for, right? And so what happens is when we have to fight for basic things, other things fall off the table. And understanding they should get a raise. And it's not a raise, it's a cost of living adjustment because the cost of living has gone up. And that was something that should have happened anyway. And so now we're talking about actual program and the lack of having, again, you want to extend the contract, we know that the cost for all of the services and the programs have gone up. So then how do we account for that? So do we chip away at the quality of program? Because that's what ends up happening.
Chair Stevens, I hear you. We will continue to push the fight and review and look and see what we can do to get to the point where we can release it. At the same time, we continue to work with our providers. As mentioned, there's an ICR initiative. Currently, the city has a number of competing priorities. The last 5 years have been eventful. And so,
Who are you telling?
so I think that we've all had to adjust and adapt to the changing environment. And so funds have been a little bit more limited, but recognizing the work that the sector does as the pandemic and the many things show, these are essential workers. These are people who do great work in their community. And so recognizing the competing priorities the city had, they thought at the bare minimum they would do what they can to at least provide additional wages to the staff so they can get funded for it. We will continue to do the work to provide additional funding, but our first step was trying to see what we can do for wages to address what's going on.
Yeah, remember, I want to also just shout out the providers, because the city wouldn't have done that if we wouldn't have been out here with 3,000 people for 2 years saying we need the money. This wasn't like they did it because it was like, guys did a good job.
It's a teamwork. It's teamwork. It's with you advocating. It's with, Jock and the mayor and everyone involved, making sure that, we're looking across and we're taking in those things in consideration. But it starts with communication. It starts with the exchange. We understand. Trust me, I understand. I'm on meetings with our providers, just really going through their pain and looking at the pain points that we need to land this thing, and I hear you. But those conversations happen the same way that our conversation with the 100 beds that we had at RHY. It starts with a conversation with OMB.
I don't know if it started with a conversation. I think it started with me yelling and being a crazy person. But I guess if we want to call that a conversation, we can. But and bringing my colleagues along to start the fight with me, because they also jumped in last year, and I so appreciate them as well. But again, we have to make sure, and listen, I don't have a problem going to OMB telling them that this is unacceptable, but this is a real problem, I think, even going into this year and seeing the inflation and not being able to provide a quality program, because it does affect the program, and we have to acknowledge that. How many contracts does DY City have for the Compass and Sonic programs?
There are a total of over 300 contracts, approximately 400.
And the other thing I want to note, and it's interesting because my colleague who was here, Councilmember Dr. Williams, was texting me yesterday about expansion. And even with the way we have it, there are some programs who are struggling with attendance. There's other programs who have long wait lists, and even with the RFP, that would also address some of the issues to be able to right-size some of the programs. And so again, having these programs in places for 10 years and not looking at the whole system of, some places got a lot of new schools and they need extensions or whatever. This is another issue, because she was asking specifically around how do we get an extension, because one of her programs is busting at the seams. And so it has so many other challenges that we have to make sure we address and get it. I know they go, y'all have to say what you have to say, but I have to say what I have to say around. We have to push back, and if I gotta go yell about it, I will, but it has to happen. And I think first step, if we're gonna say we're gonna do this extension, because I think it's into 2028, correct?
It's a 2-year extension.
Yeah, it's a 2-year extension. So at minimum, if we're gonna say we're gonna have a 2-year extension, there is no way that we should not be talking about an increase. But we do need to talk about even right-sizing the program, because again, I'm sure when she has questions, she's gonna ask y'all, how does she get this done? Because she has programs busting out the seam in Southeast Queens. And so it's even those things. So I'm preparing you guys, because I know it's gonna be her question, so get ready. The current base rate for Sonic program is $3,200. Providers are requesting a base increase to $4,150 in fiscal 2026. Will DYC consider this rate? If not, why?
Chair Stevens, DYC does not have the funds in their budget to do that at this time. That's a conversation that would have to be with OMB. So at this time, we cannot commit to that rate.
Mm-hmm. Don't worry, I'm gonna add this. I'm gonna go ask Jack myself. Okay, RHY contract issue. They have a similar issue too. Same thing. New York City RHY program providers recently received a 2-year proposed contract extension for fiscal 2026 and 2027 with indications that the bed rate will be unchanged with rates ranging between 45 and 55 per bed and no change in cost of living adjustment. Again, I'm confused about that. I don't know why they said that they didn't get the COLA.
So Chair Stevens, my office sent an email out to all the providers, and we did a number of follow-up emails and outreach to them. If they are still having that issue, I would recommend that they reach out to our help desk and we'll follow up.
Okay, because I was myself was confused. I didn't understand. I didn't call y'all yet, so sorry, Andrew, I forgot. But they did say that, and so you're saying to call the help desk because
Go
they
to
should
the
have
help
gotten it
desk
too.
and we'll follow up. We'll have some
All right, I
follow-up.
see some of them out there. Go to the help desk. Call right now because somebody's at the help desk now. All right, some of the providers are proposing the rate of $70,000 per bed. What is the agency's thought on this adjusted rate proposal for the RHY beds? Are you going to say that is not in our budget right now? We will have to speak to OMB?
Thank you, Chair Stevens.
Okay.
Yes, that is correct. It's not in our budget. We're not funded for that. And so,
All right, well, I'll add that to the questions. I will go to OMB. Has DYCD met with providers to discuss the 2026 and fiscal 2027 proposed contract extension? Have you met with them to talk about the extension?
I'm going to defer to our program unit. So what unit are you referencing?
RHY.
RHY.
That's Susan. Hello.
Deputy Commissioner Haskell will answer that question for you.
Yes, there you go.
Yes, the confirmation about the contract extensions went out by email, and several RHY providers asked for a discussion, including to some of your points about their requests for bed rates. Commissioner and some of our finance leadership joined the meeting to hear their concerns. Commissioner asked them to share all the detail that they had, and that has been shared with us, and we're reviewing that. And we're discussing, planning another meeting to walk through their scenarios. But to answer your question, yes.
Okay, so you've been meeting with them to talk about that. I mean, I've already talked about it already. I'm really concerned about the RHY, especially with the federal stuff that's going on. So let's continue to have conversations, and I know they're concerned about even the bed rates of not being with. And I have a question: why is there a range between 45 and 55,000 per bed? Why isn't everyone getting the same rate? That's a $10,000 difference.
I'm unaware of the rates being at that low. I think that some of these rates are coming in for a timing regarding RFP and ICR and COLA, but there should be no rates at that lower rate. The base should be around in the 50s, and so we can look more into it, but I'm unaware of rates starting off at that low.
Okay.
So we can follow up offline.
Yeah, that's what I was confused. But what's the difference between the rates? Do we know why the rates are varying?
Because timing of procurement and initiatives that were already included in the funding. But it's very few contracts that actually have differentials.
So do they have different requirements? So you get paid a different rate to do the same work?
Yes, because it's incidentals like ICR rate, which is like the additional funding that happens throughout the term of contract. So some of those things cause variations regarding the rate, as well as different timing of procurements.
And this is one of the things that I'm always really concerned about in the city around the difference in the contracts, because then when we hear from young people where some programs are able to provide some things and others can't, it literally provides inequities in the program. So we definitely have to get to a place where we are providing consistency, because it's not fair where like some folks are able to do, like maybe they're able to provide more services or amenities and then others can't because the rates are different. So we definitely have to talk about what does equity look like, because to me isn't really fair.
Chair Stevens, I'll just also add that there are other providers who also get in-kind contributions, and so while some organizations, offer.
And some of them fundraise and are able to have, so all of that already takes in consideration. So we should also just think about, like, when we have these contracts, what's the inconsistency? So if there's a new contract that comes out at a different rate, AKA when we think about summarizing and then cornerstones, those words are different too, and I yell about that too, but I didn't get there yet. Did not get to summarizing yet. But that's one of the big issues, because it creates competition when it kind of doesn't need. So at least at the city level, we should be consistent. I'm gonna ask a couple of more questions, and then I'm gonna pass it back. I'm gonna pass it to my colleagues, and then I have more questions, obviously. Commissioner, you talked about the Community Resource for Employment Development, CREED, that's what it is. What's,
CRED.
oh, CRED?
Cred, like credibility, cred on the streets.
Oh. You came up with that, didn't you? Yes. What's the funding for providers? I mean, what's the funding for this? And could you talk more about it? I know you started to talk a little bit about it because I know this is a new program. And you talk a little bit more about this. And what's
So-
the like funding rate for this?
Deputy Commissioner Mulligan is going to talk and give you the essentials, but long and short of it is, there was a gap in service areas when we surveyed our workforce programs, and we realized that the gap was we weren't doing a real good service for people, participants ages 24 to 40, especially those who were just as involved or linked to a criminal justice system. You want to talk about?
Great. Hi, Chair Stevens.
Hi.
So we're really excited about the CRED program. We have 8 providers who have gone through the RFP process.
Who are the
and
providers?
awards. I could rattle them off right now. We've got Cases, Common Point, JCC of Staten Island, Queens Community House, Renaissance Technical Institute, United Activities Unlimited, Youth Justice Network, and Brownsville Community Culinary Center. So you hear from that list, it's a good mix of folks who have been in our portfolio before and some new folks who are really excited to start working with. Our team has been on the ground working with each of those groups to launch these new programs because they're really something different for DYCD up to age 40, like Commissioner referenced. Each program is going to be really comprehensive, so offering job training, supportive services, referrals, and paid internships, job placements at the end of all of that. We have programs in construction, culinary, entertainment, health, technology, transportation. It's a really exciting opportunity for us because, like the commissioner said, we kept hearing that after 24, there's no DYCD workforce program for that really critical population. So this is really going to be the place where we're able to build out those services.
What's the funding for this, for this program?
I want to defer to our fiscal team to rattle off the
Funding in FY '26 is around approximately $27 million.
How are you collaborating with other agencies like HRA and things like that? What does that look like?
Yeah, we have been really busy talking to all of these agencies, sharing the program with them so that they understand what it's going to be. We've met with Department of Corrections, MOCJ, HRA, SBS, right, all of our partners, and we're working on building intentional referral pathways with each of them.
And our CMS groups as well.
Oh, and of course, the CMS groups are all really excited for this. One of the really cool innovations of having the ONS team in DYCD is we've been able to work with them, work with their providers. Many of them are in our portfolio now doing Cure Violence, Work, Learn, Grow, Cure Violence SYEP with us. And so they're very aware of this program. As soon as we told them it was launching, we immediately started collecting a list of referrals from them.
And shout out to Commissioner Letty over at DOC. We met with her as well and her staff to create pathways as well.
Okay. And have you worked with ACS as well? Okay. All right, I'm going to pause here, and I'm going to turn it over. I also would like to acknowledge that Menon and Joseph has joined us, and I'm going to turn it over to Councilmember Aviles for her questions.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning or afternoon, whatever time of day it is. Okay, well, first want to start by thanking the DYCD team. I know, again, you're doing an enormous amount of work for the city, and we appreciate that. And while we have complicated questions and issues to tend through, we do appreciate the work of every staff member in the agency. So let's start with, I'd like to talk about adult literacy funding. The preliminary plan includes $43 million in fiscal '25 and $12.8 million in fiscal '26 for the literacy program. The difference between the fiscal '26 preliminary and fiscal '25 adopted is a decrease of $20.3 million. Can you explain the difference?
Next year's budget is primarily associated with the one-time funding that's not included in the budget. As you know, there was one-time funding that happened typically in a budget, and that is primarily driving the reduction between years.
And how much and what percentage of funding for the DYCD RFP contracted adult literacy programs comes from federal funds?
I don't have that in front of me. I can get back to you afterwards and give you that information.
Great, thank you. The preliminary plan also includes federal funding of $105 million in fiscals '26. With the current federal hostile policies that we've talked about earlier today, how does DYCD intend to fill this gap if federal dollars are cut?
As I mentioned to Chair Stevens, it's a larger conversation. That's something that we have to have at OMB because there's a number of competing priorities and things to determine. At this time, we have not received any notification that there will be reduction to CSBG, which is the funding source to help support our literacy programs. And so as of right now, we're continuing as is.
As is. So last week, we heard that the Federal Department of Education's Division of Adult Education and Literacy was dismantled. And it's clear it is unclear whether the federal WIOA Title II Adult Education and Family Literacy Act funding will actually be restored. How does DYCD plan to support the continuation of adult literacy services currently provided by the community-based organizations through the state adult education and family literacy funding if the providers are going to be losing this funding?
I'm going to defer to our Deputy Commissioner Barber, who will speak to the programmatic implications of these changes.
Thank you, Council Member, for the question. As our CFO and Commissioner indicated earlier in the conversation, we're in constant communication with OMB. The possible enormity or scope of cuts to federal funding are not yet known, so it's hard for DYCD to take a clear position, but I think as Chair Stevens and the Commissioner agreed, we would continue to be in consultation with the Council as well as OMB about the potentialities.
We do appreciate the challenges of the uncertain environment, but it is certainly a little disconcerting that we are facing pretty imminent cuts and we have no semblance of a plan yet. In terms of, I'd like to segue a little bit to the Immigrant Opportunity Initiative. The preliminary plan includes, the current budget for DYC's Immigrant Opportunities Program totals $14.1 million in fiscal '25. The funding drops to $7.1 million in fiscal '26. For context, at adoption, the programs were budgeted for a total of $1.1 million. What is the reason for this initial increase in fiscal '25 and then sudden decrease in '26?
Councilman Village, you're referring to our Immigrant Services Program?
The Immigrant Opportunity Initiative, the IOI.
Is this a council fund or the discretionary?
No, this is your initiative. Started at 1.1 million, expanded again to 14.1 million, and then has dropped to 7.1 million. Wild flows up and down.
I'll follow up with you afterwards and give you more information about what the disparities are within that budget.
Okay, so we'd like to know that. We'd also like to know what is the relationship between the DYCD's IOI program and the council's funded IOI program, if you could speak to that. We'd also like to know, given the drastic rises and falls, if there's going to be any impact on services and programs. And certainly, let me just check relationship. And we'd like to know specifically what the DYCD IOI's programs the funding covers, what programs the funding covers.
We're definitely going to have to get back to you because that program is not familiar to us. We think that's the Commissioner Castro's program, but we can get back to you on to definitely tell you whether or not we have any sort of relationship with that program.
Great. We will certainly find the up and down quite alarming, given the needs and services that continue to expand. But thank you, Chair, and I'll be back for a second round. I have so many more questions. Oh, I can? Oh, amazing. Thank you. In terms of for services for immigrant families, the preliminary plan also includes roughly $3 million for fiscal '26 for services for immigrant families. Can you provide a breakdown of the services that are provided with this funding?
Thank you, Councilmember. The Immigrant Families Model provides holistic services to individuals and families of any composition, so that could be case management, practical supports, if members of the family are unhoused or seeking education or seeking employment. Really, it can run the gamut, and this program's operating in all the boroughs.
Do you know how many providers are funded through this program?
My recollection is it's 5. Hold on, let me turn around. 4 at this moment.
4. And how many people have been served through this program in fiscal '25?
Approximately 300 families.
Oh, I'm sorry, I missed that.
Sorry.
Do you anticipate a continuing number of service at that level?
We do anticipate that. As you may recall, we released a concept paper, and thank you, Member Aviles as well as Chair Stevens giving us feedback. But we don't have a concrete timetable as to when we will release the RFP. So for the immediate future, we'll be maintaining the service levels and the model that's presently in place.
Okay, love to hear if any of that feedback was integrated into any new iteration or not. In terms of the Office of Immigrant Affairs, the preliminary plan includes $336,000 for 5 full-time positions in fiscal '26. Are these positions designated to MOIA, or are they new staffing who will cover DYCD immigrant-related services?
Although I would love to have additional staff, but that doesn't reflect in our head count.
So they belong to
I
MOIA?
believe those are MOIAs, yeah.
Okay.
I'll talk to Commissioner Castro.
Yeah, and I guess for the record, we'd like to understand the details on the roles and responsibilities for those positions.
I will refer to Commissioner Castro.
There's a lot of referring going on. What's the point of the hearing if we don't? To quickly segue on Sonic and Compass programs, we talked a little bit about the request from providers. I know on January 30th, almost 60 providers sent a letter to the mayor, to OMB, and to DYCD, sounding the alarm about the underfunding, chronic underfunding of after-school programs, and a continuation of a 10-year-old contract. So the cost of those services are going up, and we are not reimbursing at even comparable rate. I think it's actually less than half of the true cost of these services are being covered. How is DYCD addressing this issue?
I have met with if not all, but most of the nonprofit partners that have sent the email and the letter. Again, we continue to talk to OMB about the concerns that the nonprofit sector and our Compass and Sonics are experiencing. Those conversations are very robust. We're bringing a lot of concerns from the sector. We have concerns. OMB has concerns as well. But that's the nature of the engagement. We have not landed yet. But those conversations are constantly and will continue to be ongoing. Our deputy mayor, Anna Amazar, has been meeting as well, just expressing the city hall's opinion to the sector and understanding the concern of the sector as well. So the conversations are happening at the highest level. But as I told the chair, we understand that it's an old model, it's an old program model, and we understand the pain that the sector is going through. But again, it starts out with everyone continuing to communicate and share what those pain points are.
I think the sector has been pretty clear of what the pain points are. I guess the short of it is, while we appreciate your understanding and your communication with the sector, the city has to dedicate the resources. If it is in fact prioritizing our youth across New York City, then this program needs to get some additional funding. And I'm sure you probably agree with me, but we need more money. I know you can't say that, but we are going to say it, because continuing to renew contracts at a 10-year-old level and then expect continued quality services is both unfair and unrealistic. So I want to
definitely hear you.
I hear you. I know you do. I know you can't say you need a lot more money, but we are going to
Don't worry, we're gonna say it for them. They need more money.
So one last thing, in terms of timely reimbursement for services rendered, one of our critical agencies, Center for Family Life, is waiting for a total of $3.4 million of reimbursement. In fiscal '25, they have In fiscal '24, they have invoices totaling more than $500,000. Fiscal '25, invoices totaling $980,000, totaling $1.9 million that they are waiting for services that have been rendered, receipts that have been put in, and still 2 years later, looking at increasing demands, waiting for this money. What is going on?
We're working with our nonprofit partners to make sure that we're resolving issues. Some of those issues are being led by the Mayor's Office of Contracts, but they're working in partnership with us. I can honestly say that the Mayor's Office of Nonprofit has also been leading the way as well, making sure that providers understand that yes, there are problems in the system, and we're working with those problems. We are providing white glove treatment to those organizations who reach out. To my understanding, and those Center for Family Life is a really, they really have amazing programs. They're a very good partner of ours. I have not gotten a phone call from them, but I will reach out to them.
So I want to correct something for the record. They have contract registration and approval and passport totaling $1.9 million, in addition to the $500,000 for fiscal '24, in addition to the $980,000 in fiscal '25, which totals actually $3.4 million in funding that should be reimbursed. With all due respect, Commissioner, white glove treatment, if you owe me $3.4 million, that is not white glove treatment.
Well, the other thing is the complexities on why there is a system problem. But what we've been doing across the board is making sure that we case manage those who are having problems across the board. And again, Center for Family Life, they are running one of our programs. They're a really good provider, and I'm just concerned that I haven't gotten a phone call, a letter, or any correspondence.
Well, I'm here right now,
Okay.
and I'm pointing it out, and I'd love to get a very clear
Sure.
time frame of when this is going to get repaired,
Absolutely.
because they are a great provider, and they want to do their best, and they work well with DYCD.
We
but
will have an answer to you.
$3.4 million
Councilmember, we
outstanding
will
is
have an answer to you
obscene.
before the end of the day.
Great, thank
Okay.
you. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councilmember Velez. And we will be having a hearing on contracting in conjunction with contracts in April, so make sure you're at that hearing as well. I just had a follow-up question around adult literacy. The adult literacy RFP funding has been contracted. Is there any NFT competition still pending for the contracts for the adult literacy?
There are 2 left.
There's 2 still pending?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay. I'm going to pass it to Councilmember Lee, but I want to give my mom a special shout out who is watching this hearing on TV right now. And she told me I was doing a good job. So shout out to my mom for watching. All right, pass
Now,
it
you've
over.
touched our hearts.
You started, and my mom turned on the TV to watch. So passing this over to Councilmember Lee.
Hello to Althea's mom. Sorry, I was just listening to Councilmember Vales' questions and my heart started beating because as someone who ran a nonprofit for 20 plus years, I have to say there were times where we had to think about foregoing pay for a lot of our senior staff because we were waiting on these contract payments. And it is a very real, serious thing. And to not be able to pay our staff and to know that me, as the head of the organization, have to provide for their livelihood, it's a lot of pressure. And I know there's a lot of issues around the contracting, so I'm glad to hear that we're gonna have a hearing on the contracting with DYCD. But one note is that as an ED, one thing I can say is I think also it's important to make sure that the ACOs have all the same training and that they understand, because I had multiple DYCD contracts, and so from one ACO to the other, they're like, how can I say, the bouncer in that moment where they have all the power and authority to let you into that club, where it's like in that moment they have the ability to say, okay, these documents are sufficient versus not. And a lot of time there's inconsistencies in what they're asking for. So that's one point of barrier that I would like to personally say, I think in my own personal experiences, that's been something that's been a little inconsistent.
And I love that. I love the fact that you said that, and I love the fact that you bring real experience to it. This is the reason why the Mayor's Office of Nonprofit was created, to make sure that there's uniformity across the system and across the agency.
Yeah, that was after my time, unfortunately, as an ET, but it would have been nice to see, yeah. And just going along with that whole theme, just do you do, just out of curiosity, do you guys have internal meetings looking at the outstanding contracts that are sort of on hold? You know, when I worked at the hospital, they would look at outstanding bills, payments, and so do you guys have those regular meetings internally?
Hi, Councilmember Lee. I'll speak for that, and Vita Bailey, CFO. And so I can tell you that there are weekly meetings on contracting. We have meetings weekly, we get reporting. I can tell you that everyone at DYC is committed to getting paid, people getting paid and registered. We can expand on CFO, but I can also tell you that there are complexities. There can be delayed submission of documents from providers. There can be outstanding insurance documents. I think that it's a shared experience with both providers and staff. A lot of our staff are chasing providers for a very long time to get documents. And so I think that it's a shared experience. We're all in it together, and we're all working on it together. I think that DYCD is working where possible if contracts are registered, giving out advances to ensure providers get cash flow. We have a CNO in-house that if a provider is experiencing immediate crisis, so we can be able to rapidly respond. So I just want to let you know that I understand, we hear you, we hear the issues from the field regarding contracting. It is not something that we take lightly. It's all hands on deck. There's staff who are doing personal sacrifice to make sure people get paid.
Right, so in that case, if you're saying you guys have weekly meetings, then in Councilmember Vales' example, wouldn't that have gotten flagged then? If there were outstanding payments to that degree?
There are complexities to what she's referencing, and so I know that for our FY24 amendments, over 90% of them have gone out and come back in. And so I don't want to go into specifics to her specific example. We can speak about offline, but I think that there's layers to what is being presented.
Okay, and then also one other experience I had is that are the agencies, can you just, personal request, just make sure that everyone is looking at, because Passport was created for this very purpose, and so the agencies should know, even before they get to you guys, right, if their documents are updated or not. I get flags for that, right? Like, so I know very clearly what the status of my organization is if there's outdated information, which prevents me from even that next step of going to you guys to get the payment. So then I just want to make sure that that is also happening where, because a lot of times when I would ask the contracting agencies or the staff, you know, at DYCD, you know, but it's on Passport. I know I'm up to date, so why are you guys asking me for these documents again? So I just also want to make sure that on your end, it's going both ways, right? And then just switching really quickly, for the contracts in general for DYCD, how much advance percentage do you guys give?
That is on a case-by-case basis. I think overall for the city, we have a flat rate that's 30%. Depending upon the program area, available funding, that makes adjustments. I think for our Summer Rising portfolio, we gave additional substantial advances because of delay in funding. And so for our Summer Rising portfolio, almost 90% of their funding has been given out to them so that, that way, Yeah.
Okay.
And that is not typical, and so that is not something that should be expected on an ongoing basis. But given the delay that we did, it was DYCD's commitment to ensure that we try to minimize cash flow issues. We did that, and so that's why I'm saying, for the examples that you bring up, there could be layers to them, and so that's why I'm saying it is much better to get more expansive responses offline.
Okay, sorry, Chair, can I keep going for a couple more questions? Okay. So for Compass and Sonic, what are the number of community-based versus school-based programs? Do you guys still do the community-based after school as well as the school-based?
There are school-based and community-based programs. I'm going to defer. About 85% is our portfolios based in footprint in schools,
Okay.
and 15% are community-based.
Okay, and is this accurate where the last contract was in 2015? Because I remember applying for those grants. Was it 2015? Oh my God. Okay, so I obviously don't want to, keep reiterating this point, but I can't emphasize enough how important it is to look at those rates and see what we can do. Because I think when we look at the actual cost per student versus what is being given in the contracts, there's like a 50% discrepancy there in terms of where the salaries and expenses should be. So I just wanted to reemphasize that point, which I know Chair Stevens has already done. So I also echo those sentiments. And just really quickly, do you also provide after-school programs for students that have ID and DD, the disabilities?
Yes.
Okay, and then for those, do you oversee them with a different agency like DOHMH? Because I know they have some of those programs, but is that also, okay,
No.
okay. And then in those instances, I would imagine, do you see the same, if not more, I would say, right, staffing challenges or issues around how to address the students that have special higher needs, or, and what
Deputy
is the
Commissioner
staffing look
Haskell
like for
speak to
that?
the students with disabilities in the after-school portfolio.
I'm sorry?
Deputy Commissioner Haskell will speak to the students with
Okay,
disabilities in the
perfect,
after-school
because that's my other
portfolio.
hat as mental health disabilities and addiction chair, so I just.
Right, excellent. We, in all our after-school programs and other programs, we have a range of young people with varying abilities and different needs, including intellectual and developmental disabilities. We don't have separate regulatory structure or infrastructure or contract structure even for those programs. But one of the things that is unique about out-of-school time, whether it's Beacon or Cornerstone or Compass, is that young people in an after-school environment can really come with the skills that they have and be served as part of like a project-based community in terms of like the activities they sign up for. Staffing has been a challenge across the board coming out of COVID. We're really seeing get to a better place with that. But I think the structure of after school is uniquely equipped to suit young people of different needs.
And do you also have to follow under, I'm assuming you work with the state OPWDD as well on that, or is it totally separate?
We don't work closely with the state
Okay.
OPWD on that. We have the same regulatory structure for school-age childcare programs, and a young person needs to be able to be served within that regulatory structure to participate in our after-school programs.
Okay. And then in the first, just switching gears to the Beacon, first 4 months of fiscal '25, the Beacon Community Centers program served 34,310 youth and 6,972 adults, an increase of 6% for youth and 7% increase for adults when compared to the same period in fiscal '24. So has the agency seen a continued increase in Beacon Community Center usage this fiscal year compared to last year? So what has that increase been, if there has been one?
Thank you for that question. Can you say specifically which part of the beacons that you're talking about an increase? Can you say that again? This is in the PMMR data you're looking at?
Yes.
Okay, great, go ahead. If you don't mind, can you ask again?
Oh, yeah, sure. So it was about 34,310 youth and then 6,972 adults. So an increase in 6% and 7% respectively. So just wanting to know if you've seen similar increases in this fiscal year.
Those increases are from this fiscal year. I think that you're
Okay.
pointing out from the July through November period.
Okay.
We can get back to you, dig into that information a little more detailed. There
Okay.
was an expansion of some summer services, including the Summer Safety Plan Initiative, that may have increased in particular, that July through August period, and that may account for some of those increases.
Okay, and then just similarly in the PMMR, the English literacy program, in the first 4 months, was revised from 4,881 to 8,533. So what was the reason for that increase, if you could?
The literacy programs are my colleague. I'm going to
Okay.
change over.
Thank you.
Hold up. Oh, he was just going to give the answer, sorry.
Sorry, Councilmember, could you just restate the last?
Oh, yeah, sure. So the English literacy program, it was revised from 4,881 to 8,533. So just wanted to know what was the reason for the difference in the enrollment numbers.
There's two elements regarding the update to literacy participants. One is registrants must reach 12 hours of instruction to become considered enrolled. So there'll be a change in the name of participants as students reach the 12-hour threshold. And the new income eligibility proofs were finalized in October of last year, so some providers were holding data entry to ensure new enrollments would be satisfied.
Thank you.
Sure.
You're all done? Thank you. Sorry. I know we were talking about contracting, and Councilmember Riley sent me a question to ask around organization not being paid. His question is the Game Over Foundation, which has been funded by the 12th District Council member to run a youth program in the Northeast Bronx. The organization has reported not receiving any payment for the past 2 fiscal years and is now facing fiscal challenges that may prevent them from continuing their program. What is causing this delay, and what steps are being taken to resolve it?
I believe that's discretionary program.
This is discretionary funding. And I know that has been a bigger delay than even some of the contracting. And so that's even separate from that. And so have they reached out about this? And where are you guys at with this?
We will look more into it. I see a Deputy Commissioner Bobbitt coming up.
You can come back, Bobby.
Bobby, you can come up to speak to it, who is better well-versed on a discretionary portfolio.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair, for the question. I'll have my team look into it today. I will say there are ongoing conversations with providers. We make a point of having routine provider meetings, and basically everyone in the discretionary portfolio, we try to make ourselves available when problems arise. So I'll flag that now and bring it back to the team.
Yeah, I know specifically the discretionary funding has been even more delayed than the contracting, and the contracting has been the priority to get out. And so
It's a complexity in that whole process and the whole system. One of the good things that are happening is the working group with Capital Council Finance, happening on a deputy mayor level. I participated in some of those meetings, and I do believe 100% that the recommendations and the fixtures to the system is going to show improvement across the board.
Listen, I mean, I got to say it just because it's a budget hearing. The procurement process in New York City is just out of control and ridiculous at this point. And I know even with even asking the contract questions to you guys sometimes, and I don't give you a lot of credit, it's not fair because a lot of it is out of the control of the agencies, but we do have to continue to push forward to figure out where the systemic issues are because it's a problem that we're not paying people.
And 100%, and that's why, I just wanted to put some light at the end of the tunnel with the working group that's happening.
We had a working group before, and we pretty much cleared up the backlog.
But
now we're
everybody's
further
at the
forward.
table, and everybody's talking through systematic issues. And
That was
repair.
the work. We had a working group before when we cleared up the backlog, and we're back to
But I'm talking
even worse off.
specifically about discretionary.
Okay.
Yeah.
When they had the working group before, it was cleared, and we're back in the same position. So I don't know if a working group is where we need to be. I think that it's a systemic issue, and we need to be looking at reforming real policy and not just trying to fix the issue. It clearly needs long-term solutions because literally, when was it? But I'll give the credit again. It was like 2 years ago, the backlog was almost cleared out, and now here we are again in the same thing. So that means that it's a systemic issue. And so it's not a working group because they had a working group. And so clearly we need to make some legislative changes and some real investments into the mock system that often gets overlooked and underfunded. Which isn't you guys, so it's not my fight, that's Julie Wong's fight, so I'll leave it there. I'm going to turn it over to Councilmember Williams at this time for her questions.
Yes, I just want to say that I know the chair holds you all accountable at these hearings, but she's very protective of this agency. Even when members like myself are quite critical, she helps us to understand a lot of the complexities. I just was talking to her about a complexity because I am currently doing an initiative with NYU around mental health outcomes and student success. And we just had a session yesterday, and some of the schools who also double and work at the after-school program, run the after-school program, and expanded program, talked about how some of the healing modalities that we're talking about need to transfer over into after-school. So even if a student may not present in a particular way, but maybe they are struggling with some type of mental health challenge, or maybe they have an IEP or something to that effect. The commentary was that the training that the staffers have to go through is not comprehensive and does not give them the appropriate skill set to deal with a wide range of issues that we are seeing. And I know it came up in this hearing, especially post-COVID. And she just shared with me a whole bunch of things just now, but I'll just ask you on the record, like outside of potentially dismissing, you know, a scholar from a particular program, what other resources, solutions are we doing to provide support for the providers so they can appropriately like service the student so they're not getting kicked out? You know, I know you have these, you know, unique programs for folks who deal with this population, wonderful population. We love them. But I'm just wondering, because I know there are a lot of other students who are ending up in regular after-school programs.
Mental health and trauma is one of the highest priority in DYCD. And to the fact that we've actually created a unit within DYCD, the Office of Mental Health Support, to make sure that we're coordinating not only internally program areas, but also externally to make sure that those that are really in the space, like the Mayor's Office of Mental Health, the Department of Health and Mental Hygiene, and New York City Public Schools, and all of our stakeholders across the board, that we're coordinating and sharing resources to make sure that the young people are receiving at the highest level treatment and opportunities to be able to have clinicians and have services that they can really just really commit to, and we can commit to them.
Yeah, they didn't reference any resources. They referenced some training. So I guess there's a little something that you all try to do, but the commentary was that like this person is a program director, but they're also a DOE employee, right? So they're getting a certain set of training that's still not enough, right? But it's more than what is actually required at the after-school level. And this is for all students across the board. So like I want to acknowledge that he mentioned that there's some type of something, maybe a DOH state training or something that folks are required to do. I'm not sure. Yeah, but he said it does not go far enough to providing support for the employee to properly care for the young person.
No, and I hear you, and I appreciate you bringing that up. I think that the investment in mental health actually is on the mayor's highest list. When we, about a year ago, we had town hall meetings with young people across the 6 precincts with the highest level of gun incidents and shootings. And one of the 2 things that came out of that hearing that young people stated to us is, 1, concern about police interaction, and number 2, their mental health and trauma. But one of the things that one of the young persons told to at the time, Dr. Fassad, was peer-to-peer. And we started to take a look at that to see exactly how we can pass that on to the providers and create those opportunities to do peer-to-peer counseling and train providers and train our young people to be able to take on that part. Because the young person was very clear, and he, and I remember it like it was yesterday, and really approached Dr. Fassad and said, I'm not going to talk to a clinician. I'll go through the routine, but I would rather talk to my friend as opposed to someone as a social worker. And that was vitally important for us to hear. So we've been creating focus groups. We've been, again, meeting with our stakeholders to make sure that the investments and the training are actually happening across our program areas.
Chair, can I get a little bit more time? The commissioner has a lot to say. Took up my time for my question. So. I was trying not to be rude. I was trying to let him get his points out. Okay, thank you, Chair. So the other questions that I have, I'll just ask more after-school questions since she lined me up for that. So after-school providers report having ongoing difficulties with staff recruitment and persistent staffing shortages that impact their ability to meet contractual obligations. So how is the agency planning to support providers to pay competitive wages and address the longstanding issue of CBO staff turnover? I know you are about to issue an RFP soon. Oh, the hope. Okay. So just wanted to know if you're taking those things into consideration in terms of how you're crafting the RFP itself.
100%. We're highly engaged with our nonprofit partners, looking at the salary levels. We've been doing surveying across the board, meeting with providers. Deputy Commissioner Haskell and her team constantly engaging. And yes, I think we mentioned previously that across the sector, there is concern that we're not being competitive with the salary. So we see that. We're working, and hopefully, if and when the RFP and the concept paper and all of that goes out, when all of that comes to play, we'll be able to right-size some salaries. That's the hope. That's the goal.
Okay, and I know you may not take that into this particular thing I'm going to ask into consideration when you're crafting an RFP. I mean, I guess you could, because you do have wait list numbers, so you do know how certain programs are doing in comparison to other programs across the city. And my question that I had asked the chair yesterday was around this, and I kind of compared it to the 3K issue, where you have some programs that are like beyond capacity, and then you have some programs that have reduced numbers. I know in the PMMR, it kind of shows that there's been a slight reduction of participants in some of the after-school programs. But how are you ensuring that the communities that need the after-school programs actually get the support, the number of spots that they need, in comparison to communities, maybe there's an underutilization of an after-school program, and like making that assessment and thinking about how you award contracts and the number of, slots a particular program can have. Like, all of this seems like some type of methodology that you have like crafted based off of whatever data. If you have that information, that'd be great to know. But just wondering, as you look forward to this new iteration of Compass and Sonic, like, how are you ensuring that we're right-sizing programs by community need? Because that was another thing, that was another one of their complaints, that they don't have enough seats. And there's no real clear way to increase the seats. And I was educated by the chair. because I was about to go crazy. And she was like, no, they have all these complexities. See, she cares about you guys most of the time.
And we care about her. And we care about her. So 100% understand we do have an extensive program evaluation team that evaluates how organizations are doing. Our first initial response is capacity building. How do we provide governance? How do we provide structure to those organizations that appear to be struggling for a variety of different reasons? And the chair is very,
I'm not even talking about
complex.
organizations struggling. I'm talking about like programs that don't have enough seats in comparison to the need. You know, like somebody was telling me, oh, the parents line up so early, the line is around the corner.
There are waiting lists. Yes, absolutely. There are waiting lists across the board. So again, that does tie into capacity, right? So yes, we have waiting lists in most, if not all, of our programs. I'm really trying to understand the question on our MMR.
Yeah, how do you
because
expand
our
the
MM
seats?
our
Because
MMR
there's theories, which the chair educated me on. There's theories that certain after-school programs are struggling, right? Like but for whatever reasons, maybe it's an infrastructure issue with the CBO. Maybe they just, they don't have their numbers up in terms of participants. And then there are other after-school programs that have extensive wait lists. So how are you
So those contracts are very certain, right? So if a CBO has 100 slots, right, and another CBO has 50 slots, those are all contracted numbers.
Yeah, so that's my question is, as you look forward to the next iteration of a new contract,
we will look at
how
those
are
numbers.
you ensuring that the contract, the RFPs reflect that? Like you have a lot of data, right? So
we do.
How are you using the data that you have to make the programs make sense in certain communities that have, and I know we're never gonna have enough money to service all the things. So I'm just trying to understand though, is there any assessment being made
Yes.
to right size that across
Yes.
communities?
100%. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Councilmember Williams. Just a couple of things too, and I'm going to mention summarizing quickly, but I'm actually going to be leaving a lot of that to Chair Joseph today. But there was one thing about summarizing that I did appreciate is we did expand to ensure that we were working with young people with disabilities, and that's the one thing that I do like. But even with talking with Councilmember Williams yesterday, I do think it is true. A lot of times in the after-school program, all the kids are just folded in, but in the same way, during the school year, it would be nice to have the same type of training and supports, because in Summer Rising, we have paras all of a sudden that we've asked for years. We have all these different access, and so just thinking about, when we're thinking about this moving forward with the RFP, I hope that if it's important for this Summer Rising program that I don't like, that is just as important in these other programs to be thinking about. So I just wanted to make sure that was on the record, because it is just very interesting how we make exceptions for things or, new initiatives that come up. So, that was the one thing that maybe a couple other things out of Summer Rising, but that's one of the one things that I do appreciate about that we opened it up to make sure that more young people had access. So I hope to see those things moving forward. And then, Commissioner, you had spoke about peer-to-peer training and stuff like that. Somebody passed the legislation around that. I don't know who. But there was like a package of some people doing that good work. 3 of them are sitting here of the package. But I just wanted to know, how are you guys utilizing some of that stuff that's going to be coming up, and have you guys been working with DOHMH? I know that the emphasis was on schools, but most of our programs are in schools, and how are we going to make sure that young people are accessing this peer-to-peer curriculum that they will now have, and how do we plan on using it in our programs?
And absolutely, I think that we are still in the beginning stages of the actually build out, because what's key to us is training, right? And making sure that young people, if they are involved in the peer-to-peer, it can be through Work, Learn, and Grow, it can be through any one of our school-based programs, that they are trained. One of the things that we don't want to do, and we're very concerned about, and you know this as well, is trauma bonding, right? Which is real. So we have to build it up with that mindset, understanding that although it's a peer-to-peer model, we do not want to create another problem across the board.
Yeah, absolutely. But, just making sure that we're thinking about this will be another tool in the toolkit, which is why we have it now, that we can have young people sign up for. And it is a training so that they can do the peer-to-peer work and have access to it. So we should definitely think about how we can use that in our program, because it's not just going to benefit DOE schools, it's about the climate. So they have access, they'll be able to take it, and we should think about integrating it and using it in our model too, since it's something
And then
there.
when we land on a draft, we will definitely touch base with you and the regular other council members to get your input as well.
Okay, no problem. Thank you. I'm going to turn, minute left. Okay. All right, I'm going to turn it over to Councilmember Joseph.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon. How are you? Good to see you all. I'm going to talk about summarizing. In the preliminary budget, we saw $19.6 million in the fiscal for 2026 program to enhance the hours for middle school students, right? That was a big win for us last year when we decided to make it Monday through Thursday, and what was going to happen to that middle school crowd. It was huge. But please explain why the decision was made to enhance the hours for middle school students. I know why, but folks want to know why.
I think it's creating a safe space for kids to be at so that, we can ensure that, we minimize any issues and they're productive and continue to expand and build upon what they learned during the summer. Minimize learning loss.
Absolutely. Tutoring, we know that. But the original PEG reduced the eliminated Fridays and weekdays hours. What will the enhanced hours be like for middle school students? What does that look like?
The PEG
Other than the learning loss.
So the PEG expanded the weekday hours to 6 p.m. as well as added hours for Friday. And so it was a full restoration.
Full restoration of the Friday hours.
Yes.
And that's what we were all fighting for. Families and CBOs has also expressed concern that there need to be more option within the summer rising program, especially for some students with middle school. Some students say, I want to go for enrichment because I don't need the academic portion, right? We have our students that are going to the next grade. They don't need that. How do we make it they want to come, they want to go? Because when we did the hearing last year, we saw a drop in 100,000 kids applied, and then for some reason it starts dropping off. How do we retain the students?
So, I appreciate you being an educator and asking those questions. And we are having conversations, a continued conversation with our partner over at New York City Public Schools to make sure that activities, learning are happening continuously throughout the day. That a young person should not think about, hey, you know what, I'm getting stuck in some academic part for the morning, and then and then it's fun in the afternoon. DOE, public schools have been open to having those conversations. I believe the chancellor and her team had mentioned that as well. I also want to highlight the chancellor for the survey that was performed that showed that it's a positive experience to be in Summer Rising as well. As we continue to talk about Summer Rising, and I'm looking in that sideway to Chair Stevens because I know she's going to say something, but as we continue to look to improve the Summer Rising experience, from the very launch until where we are now, we've seen major changes. And I think we just need to continue to communicate, to talk with the parents, to talk with you about what those changes need to be as we continue to build on that program model. And New York City Public Schools have been open to those conversations.
As they should. I would love to see a lot of project-based learning for our students in middle school during the early morning. It doesn't have to sit down. Let's do a lot of project-based learning in the morning until they go and they have the fun. So real life experience, let them design what's the solution for the next problems in the world. So project-based learning, I would love to see that incorporated for middle school students in the morning versus just sitting at their desk all day long in crowded classrooms. I visit sites. 30 kids in a classroom during Summer Rising. I also talked to the chancellor about the class sizes that I'm seeing ballooning during Summer Rising. And how do you, students with IEPs that are mandated to have related services or in the afternoon part of the evening, do they have a para? Do you follow their IEPs? What is being done for students with disabilities in the afternoon portion of Summer Rising?
That's a great question. Every Summer Rising student who has an IEP gets an accommodation plan for the summer, which is going to outline the services that they need to participate fully in both the morning and the enrichment parts of Summer Rising.
And what about the ones that require a one-to-one para as well? How does that work?
That would be recommended in their accommodation plan, and our partnership with the Office of Students with Disabilities would help facilitate those resources.
I know we're also working on transportation in the evening, because I know our students who take the bus normally cannot stay for the afternoon portion because of bus contracting. Because it's the contract, it's not you. It's the contract. Is there any work being done around that?
We have any participant in Summer Rising who's staying to the end of the day can use rideshare as an alternative to the busing.
But some of the rideshare require a parent ride with them.
That's right.
So how is that working? That's still works?
It's an alternative to busing for young people who want to stay for the full day.
So what are the percentage of parents, if you have data, that are satisfied with the Summer Rising program? A lot of our low-income families have also expressed a lot of concern not being able to get their children enrolled. We saw that a huge barrier. What changes are you making to implement to increase parents who technology may not be at their fingertips to have access to enrolling their children in Summer Rising?
I actually am going to call my colleague Dan Nguyen to talk about some of the supports we're giving for parents and some of the improvements that we've made to the enrollment system to help both families and CBOs do a better job. Yeah.
Yeah, he has to be sworn in.
Yep, sworn in. Sorry, thank you. Thank you for being honest.
Please raise your right hand. Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in your testimony before this committee and to respond honestly to council member questions?
I do, yes. All right, good afternoon, Chair Joseph. As you know, the recruitment process is not just a centralized process, it's work that happens on the ground. So we're anticipating not just our CBOs who do amazing work in connecting those families who have technological issues, but also our parent coordinators and New York City Public Schools Family Welcome Centers to ensure that there's alternative ways to making sure that they can apply using the My Schools.
And families that English is not their first language, how are you providing language access and support for those families as well?
So the website itself has the ability to translate to many different languages, not just necessarily to English. So with having the Family Welcome Support Center, along with parent coordinators and school leaders and CBOs, to be able to navigate that system to the languages that they need in order to enter the information.
And in the hearing we had around Summer Rising, one of the things we heard around was staff vacancies, low attendance, and support for students with disabilities. How are you changing that system this year? What does that look like this year?
So are you speaking in relation to the system or just across the board?
The Summer Rising itself.
Okay. So if we could start with the low attendance rates, right? Mm-hmm. So it is worth noting that Summer Rising is not a mandated program except for a select few. Historically, this allows this level of flexibility for families to take full advantage of the program as they need. One of the things that we are keeping in mind is that this is a full process, right? From when the app is open to the start of the program, there are phases and there's different levels of engagement, right? Centrally through New York City Public Schools and DYCD, but as well as the CBOs, right? So when a parent, their family selected, there's a parent orientation. We want every parent to take full advantage of that, whether it is happening in person or Zoom or with any type of level of conversation, so they can learn about the program. This is also about trust, right? You're leaving your child in a stranger's hands. You want to use the time between a child is selected and that start date to engage with that family. Because if you feel that you can trust someone, then you're going to show up. right? And we know, because the data showed, we learned last week from New York City Public Schools, that when you attend 20 or more days, there is some growth academically. So there's some value in showing up. And I think it's important that that got out there. And not only that, that our CBOs play an important factor in that process as well.
We know.
Because what happens in the afternoon is very valuable. And we believe that if we continue to push this model and the results start coming out, they'll really feel more confident that I should keep my child here a little bit longer than I normally will.
How long does it take for someone to get off the wait list once, let's say, you wait list them, and I may have family vacation planned and you put me on the wait list? How long does that take to get off the wait list so that family can plan around Summer Rising?
Well, what's important here is that there is a phase between app selection and the start date in which a family may decline the position. So that wait list is active the next day after selections are made. So meaning a parent may not have gotten called the first day, but maybe a week later, now the list starts to move because maybe I am gonna go on vacation now. I applied early in March, but guess what? I'm gonna go to the islands for the summer. So now a parent has the ability to decline, and now that next child, right, thinking about the prioritization to get the highest need young person there, can say, now I'm a part of that program. So a lot of the list can start moving even as early as the notifications happen in the spring. So in the summer, we know it's a very short window, but that happens a lot more locally, which is much more true to what happens on the ground, right? School leaderships, CBOs, they're seeing who's showing up. They know their wait list. They'll be able to filter and navigate and fill in gaps by the grade levels, which is a new feature within my schools as well, which makes that process move a lot faster.
Is there a plan to hire more paras in the evening? Has that been a challenge to get paras in the afternoon portion of the programming?
So what's good about the collaborative nature of New York City Public Schools and DYCD is that we have escalation protocols. So when there were instances that there's no staffing available, we're able to connect with that office and Central to be able to address those issues because we want to make sure that those services are readily available for young people.
Is there a plan to lower the class sizes this year as well?
That is a great question. That is a great question that we would have to work with New York City Public Schools, understanding all the space that we have available to open up more classrooms and buildings.
And what's some of the issues you saw last year that New York City Public Schools, I know they're not here, but DYCD can say, hey, we're going to work on this to improve this area?
I think talk about the curriculum that you've been having conversations with them about.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we want to highlight is that summer learning happens everywhere. Right, and I think as the commissioner mentioned before, over the past couple of years, we've seen New York City Public Schools being more amenable and understanding that enrichment happens all day. So we do know that New York City Public Schools intends to implement some enrichment activities during the day and connect with CBOs on how that works, right? Because our CBOs, they know how to run enrichment. They do it very well, and how we can collaborate together, offering sustainability projects, financial literacy classes for all grades, on top of what already CBOs offer in the afternoon, and we hope that is another driver. And we're looking forward to experiential learning that happens outside of the classroom as well, aka more trips that happen during the day, which will also drive more attendance.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Joseph. I have a couple of Summer Rising questions. And I know you mentioned parent orientation is a requirement, but what happens when a principal denies parent orientation? I actually had a couple of complaints from parents last summer where the principal did not allow for parent orientation to happen, and the principal themselves wouldn't even meet with the parents. So what happens in those instances?
So in any instance where there is a disconnect with partnerships, between both our central offices, we have those escalation protocols at the district, the school level, to be able to engage school level folks to ensure that these events happen. The benefit as well that, if it can't happen in the physical space for, scheduling or capacity reasons, we can also have Zoom options for families because we do know working parents, they get home.
But the issue isn't with the parents and them having the option. The issue is if the principal is telling the CBO that they can't do it, then it gets shut down. So what does that look like, especially when it's a requirement on the CBO side and not the DOE side? So how do we mitigate that? I mean, obviously, they called me and I started to be a crazy person, but how do we mitigate that? Because that is a factor, and I had a number of parents complaining that they couldn't meet with the principal and they didn't let them have the orientation. So the CBO then was doing like 101, which shout out to them, but that was just unfortunate.
Well, we want to avoid those types of incidents this year. So as we hear of them because it shouldn't be happening, right? CBOs and principals work on a collaborative planning tool, which should include all phases of pre-planning and startup to the program. And parent orientations play a huge factor.
Oh, I'm aware. And that was a huge issue. So I just wanted to make sure. And I know at the last week's hearing on DOE, they cited that attending Summer Rising showed increase. However, the kids that also attend our cornerstones see the same increase. Just want to point that out because I want it to be clear that, like you said yourself, education does not just take place in the class. And even one of the suggestions I'm thinking, like, we've been talking about trips. Teachers could go on trips. I don't know why they don't do it during the day. I don't know why all of a sudden during the summer they can do a trip during the day because the CBO is going to be there regardless. So maybe that's one of the things that we can push for, Councilmember
And that's
Joseph.
actually one of the things that Daniel and Susan have been actually talking with our partners over at New York City Public Schools. And I believe when I was listening to the testimony of the chancellor and her team, they did acknowledge that school trips can happen during the day.
They can, but we know that they don't be happening, which is why they happen on Friday. But I will say this, I did speak to the chancellor afterwards, and she said she heard all of my concerns, and she did not know that I had such a disdain for this program, and so she wants to sit down to go through some things. I do, because, again, even at the last hearing, even things that our side does well, we should be in charge of, like recruitment and applications and those things. But I'm not going to reiterate that right now. All right, the United Neighborhood Houses evaluated the Summer Rising program, found that 37% of CBO staff respondents are reporting that applicants and registration process is still challenging, and 35% of the CBO staff respondents identify a lack of coordination between DOE, DYCD, and CBO. And the CBO has another challenge they are facing for Summer Rising. Has the agency had a discussion with the providers regarding this concern and related to Summer Rising programs?
So yes, so we've done a number of things. First and foremost, we know that we wanted to make sure that CBOs had access to the same My School system. So that was something we were able to accomplish last year, meaning that school principals and our CBO site directors were able to see the exact same portal. One of the enhancements we made was filtering the wait list by grade level, because you know that if 2 kids from 2nd grade went out, but the wait list only had kindergarten through 1st grade, you weren't able to go down that list. So we were able to work with New York City Public Schools. Bless you. To make
It's cold
those
in here,
enhancements.
right? We are freezing.
No, what's going on?
Like, I promise you, I'm freezing to death. I'm sniffling. Thank you. I'm sorry. Continue.
So we definitely made those enhancements to make sure that it's a lot more fluid. Another key component was making sure that CBOs had access to My Schools and making sure that through our DYCD Connect portal, that all you needed to do was update your contacts there, and that data would then transfer to My Schools, so you'd be able to get into the system as well. So those were 2 major, it's kind of in the weeds, it's what the work, but it makes it much easier for the CBOs to navigate the system. We also host ongoing sessions for all programs, not just Summer Rising, center-based as well, on all summer programming content, but it's also inclusive of the training, the portal, having access. We have a set team in place to connect with every single CBO. If they have any technical issue, they should be reaching out to us directly. They know who we are. We bother them all the time. We send them thousands of emails. So if there's any particular issue that a CBO has with the system, they should be reaching out to us, and we can troubleshoot immediately.
So is the information transported over to DYCD Connect? Is that a seamless process, or does the CBO still have to enter it into the system?
They wouldn't have to enter it into the system. They should be already, as a process itself, updating DYCD Connect whenever a site director changes or any contacts has to be updated, meaning if you have a new cell phone number, you should be updating that. And then that data is then being able to transfer over so that they can log in seamlessly into My Schools and be able to see their portfolio of applicants.
I have some in-the-week questions that I'm not going to do right now because I have questions about some work scopes and all that stuff. I'm not going to do that to you now. I'll call you later about it. Councilmember Brewer.
Thank you very much. I do want you to know that all the summer youth employment program students have all been hired in my office, so thank you very much. They're all excellent. My question is, because we're in budget season, and I've been in budget season for the last 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. My question is, how many contracts do you have in total? You have them more than anybody else, any other agency, and what percentage are paid on time?
Well, Chair, Councilmember Brewer, we have about 1,400 contracts in our agency. For FY25, we had 1455. FY26, we're looking at 1367. The drop is primarily attributed to the discretionary portfolio. So you can say we have about a baseline, about 1,400 contracts in our agency.
Okay, but how many are paid on time? 1,400? No.
I can't say that many are paid on time at this time.
Can you give me some percentage or?
It's 0.
Well, right now, we're in a transition year, so I can't speak to that. We're in a transition year from Passport, and we're all transitioning. And so the reporting is still not available for us to be able to effectively determine cycle time. But anecdotally, I will not sit here and state that all of our invoices are paid on time. That's just not accurate.
Okay, do you, how about from last year? In other words, how about from 24, FY24?
24, typically prior to the transition into Passport, our invoice turnaround time is 5 to 7 days.
Okay, all right. This is the biggest issue, you know that. So you're going to let the chair know what we can all do to try to improve the on-time payment? You'll let the chair know? It is the issue. It's out in the streets. It's at Fairway. It's at the it's everywhere. So we all want to help, but it's really got to improve.
We agree.
Thank you.
That's it? Okay, great. So we're gonna call this the lightning round because
Okay.
I have a whole bunch of questions and we still have another agency. Let's keep the answer short. All right, so we are going to go into ONS. Is Daryl coming back up? Yeah. Let's go. Okay, the neighborhood safety has a budget headcount of 48 in fiscal 2026, but a current actual headcount of 23 as of January. Has there been any change to the actual headcount since January? According to the reporting provided to council from DYCD, the Cure Violence Program with ONS has an actual headcount of 11. Is this accurate headcount for the program?
Yeah, the headcounts are accurate. I did allude earlier that we are getting some of those in FY26, so that's why they're not on board.
Yeah. There's a total of 24 contractors and providers for Cure Violence Program citywide. The greatest number of contracts and largest funding is in Brooklyn. Has there been any expansion of sites in Brooklyn since 2024? If so, which precincts and sites?
Since 2024, no, we haven't expanded any of the contracts.
And is there a specific reason why the biggest funding sources are in Brooklyn? Because it's big? Is that what it is?
I mean, of course, geographically, but also population density, and those are the areas that were identified and precincts by having the greatest need, if you will, to place some of those programs and contracts.
There's a large number of vacancies in ONS as a result of hiring. Is there an issue with having experience to fill these critical positions? Are you having an issue filling them?
Chair Stevens, are you referring to provider staff or DYCD agency staff?
Agency staff, because you do have a headcount issue. So are you having issues?
So Chair Stevens, so we do have some vacancies that we're waiting for approval to hire on. In addition to that, we are going to get additional PARs and headcount come next fiscal year.
What are the What are the vacancies you need permission to hire for currently? Do you have those?
For the program staff, I want to say we have 2 initiative managers. Actually, I have it here. Nice. 2 initiative managers, 1 program assistant, and then 2 borough managers.
Okay. So I'm going to go into some questions around one of the reductions that we had last year. The CJU budget was cut, and you know, because we were in an economic crisis. DYCD now, is there a fiscal, like we are out of the fiscal emergency, do you think there's a possibility for us to restore the CJI funding at the past levels this year?
Chair Stevens, are you referring to the Legal Aid
Yeah.
Society? Okay, I'm sorry. You
I'm
said
sorry.
CJ.
CJU?
Yeah, it's the division with it, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Mhm.
So yes, and as we testified before, that cut came at a time when the city's budget was in dire straits, and we had to make drastic budget cuts in that November. It was cut by 2.5 million, as you know, which left us with 2.5 million of a contract with Legal Aid. The team has been working with them closely on the work that they do, and it's very important work to our providers across the system. I can tell you now that the work they've been doing, they've provided legal services to over 325 cases of legal services, which include representation, advice, briefing services. They've done workshops across the city, connecting with our CMS providers. Attendees to those workshops have been over 3,900.
Thank you.
So they are still doing very vital work across the city, and we're working with them closely to actualize whether or not how the cuts totally affecting.
Yeah, I mean, they are still doing the work, but they still need the funding. And so just thinking about what the CMA organizations rely on CJI legal services to meet community needs and support their mission to eradicate gun violence. So what is DYC's plan to, either fight for it or try to get this restored? Because this is something that works hand in hand in the overall mission around CMS, and we don't want to just have piecemeal. So what are we doing around that?
So I had the opportunity to really see their services up close and personal in terms of the way they have supported not only the CMS system, but our participants across the board. As Deputy Commissioner Radway said, their support and their service is vital to what we're doing. Those are going to be ongoing conversations that we're going to have with OMB.
Thank you. And I guess the last question I'll just ask around this is, CJU was critical in the public safety plan, and public safety has been a key aspect. So just thinking about what's like for the last year, how do we continue to sustain public safety and talk about reducing gun violence without this? So I know you said you were going to have conversation with OMB. Definitely will add this to my list of things to go and talk to them about as well. But I do think this is something that we do have to talk about, because as CMS is building out and we know it's reducing gun violence, I believe the controller put out a report recently around it. Council put out a report around CMS's work as well, and so we want to make sure that as it's building out, that we are not leaving out critical pieces, and just ensuring that now that it's under DYCD, we don't want it to be like, oh, it's over there now and it's messing up. So I want to make sure that we have all the tools that are necessary for us to be successful in what was given to us and not just piecemeal. So I will leave it at that. I guess Deputy Commissioner Haskins is going to come up because I'm going to be moving on to Runaway Youth. Thank you, Darius, for your services.
Thank you, Chair Stevens.
So I want to talk a little bit about the additional 100 beds that we have, and some homeless runaway youth stuff. So the preliminary budget includes a baseline of $6 million for the 100 additional beds for young people ages 21 to 24. Is the funding significant to meet the needs of the RHY programming?
Yes, it is. We're grateful for this funding, as you mentioned, and we're hopeful that, we'll be ready to move forward and implement it.
Have we already identified the providers that are going to be implementing these 100 beds?
Not yet. We, Senior Director Samantha Dawkins began immediately engaging with our providers to understand where there's capacity, both in existing programs and for new programs. And so we're in the midst of those negotiations with providers now and hope to land a plan soon.
What's your anticipated date to have these 100 beds online?
We will roll out the 100 beds throughout FY26. It's our goal to open some of them immediately. And as we're in conversations about available sites and how close they are to state certification, we'll understand better what that timeline is going to look like. They'll roll out over the course of the fiscal year.
Okay. how are you like divvying up the beds when you think about it? And will there be like a even distribution amongst boroughs, or are you starting with providers? Could you talk a little bit about that process as well?
I think we'll see, based preliminarily on our discussions, I think we'll see a nice distribution across the boroughs and, for different populations.
And
I also want to make sure, because we also having conversations with the providers about capacity. So.
Yeah. And I will say this, listen, when I was out here advocating for the beds, we were also talking to providers at the same time to make sure that this could be a fast turnaround. So I want that to be on the record too. This was not coming out of anywhere. Everyone was on board and knew that I was yelling about this. So my hope is that the providers are prepared. Well, I know that they are prepared because we talked about this beforehand. So whatever support you need from me, let me know so we can continue to make sure that this happens. And just the last question on this is just thinking about with the additional beds, are there specific places we already kind of see gaps that we want to try to use to fill these 100 beds, whether it's like boroughs or locations? Are we thinking about that too? Like there was like a great need, maybe like, oh, like in the Bronx they didn't have enough beds, let's start there. Is that being taken into consideration?
We are definitely looking at utilization and demand in terms of, how to finalize where these beds go. In the first hand, our plan is to fund homeless young adult beds for the older youth, noting that there's a high need there and we have just 60 beds funded right now. The other thing we're seeing is high demand for male beds, so we're taking that into consideration. And so we will absolutely be looking at meeting the needs of the specific demographics.
Thank you so much. So we're going to move on to Saturday Night Lights. I don't know if you want to come back up, Mr. Darrow. I'm making you get all your steps in today. And Val, if you want to get ready, SYEP is coming up after that. So, all right. You know how much I love this program, Darrow. I'm being facetious. All right. What's the attendance for the Saturday Night Lights program in fiscal 2024?
Great question. In FY 2024, we had a total enrollment of 8,830 participants.
So 8,000 what?
830.
830. All right. Has there been changes in the number of borough site locations for the SNL programs? I believe there was some additional add-ons.
So we had one program that dropped out. So we're currently at 135 locations across the city.
What was the program? Why did they drop out? And where was it?
I would need to get back to you.
What borough was it in?
It was a Manhattan-based program.
Okay. All right. What is DY City's fiscal 2025 budget for SNL programs?
Hi. Budget is approximately $5 million.
$5 million? I just want to point out.
A little bit later, around $4 million.
$4 million?
Yeah.
I just like to point out, ask the attendance, and then you gave me what the enrollment was. But you think I didn't pick up on it. It took me a minute. But what was the attendance
Chair
for?
Stevens, let us get back to you on the average attendance. We have those rates, but I don't have them with me.
I'm like, wait a minute, am I crazy? No, that was enrollment. I didn't ask that. But okay. So you'll get back to me with the attendance percentages.
Absolutely.
Got it. I know where to find you too. I know you work out. What were the overtime costs associated with this program last year?
Chair Stevens, I'm assuming that you're referring to NYPD overtime costs?
Yeah, what was that? You don't know? Yeah. Just say you don't know.
I'm not familiar.
Okay, it's not
with
my
overtime.
Got it. Other than attendance, how does DYCD measure the success of the program?
Great question. I mean, from the programmatic lens, our program managers go out, assess the programs, how are they doing with recruitment, retention, quality of services, implementation. Essentially, are they trying to create a vibrant program and community within that space that they're in, a safe space where they're also connecting with NYPD as well?
And I also want to add this, that we heard you from previous testimonies, so there's a survey that we've completed and some numbers that we have associated with the program. We're still going through what that assessment is and what the data is showing us. We will love to read you in on that when we finalize the numbers.
Absolutely. I mean, that was one of the things that I've been hooping and hollering about for the last couple of years, just around the evaluation of this program. Because
2.5 years.
All right, fine. No, it's 3 years. This is 3 years, because it was 3 years the whole time.
2.5 years of my
You wasn't
tenure.
here, right? Not my fault you wasn't here. It's been 3 years. No, and it's really around like how are we measuring the success of this program? Because honestly, if we like zoom out, right? If we're looking at DYCD, we're zooming in, and it's like, okay, we're serving the kids. But when we zoom out, and then I see that we are increasing in gun violence and juvenile folks ending up in jail, it's like, okay, so is this program serving what we need? Because you stated that we're at like maybe like $4 million for this program. So we're between $4 and $5 million. Is this doing what we actually want it to do is always going to be my question. And so we need to have data to back this up.
And
Because
we do.
I don't think that we are, because
And we do. And again, we're going through the numbers. We're going through the survey. We will be able to read you into exactly what the data is showing us.
absolutely. But again, if I'm zooming out, and with the great leadership of my speaker who gave me ACS and DYCD, I'm able to evaluate on a whole different level than I have in the past. And the numbers that we are at, literally, I was at Crossroads yesterday. It's full to capacity, and it's crazy. And so for me, it's thinking, I don't want to talk about what they do in or after. I want to talk about prevention. And this is why I said you're the expert and not Jock, because you have to come up with a solution for them not to come there. So for me, that is really what the driving force is. And again, young people, what they saying they want? Jobs, not programs. So thank you, Mr. Wrestler, for your time. You can now leave the dance. I'm looking for Ms. Valerie. Please come to the front of the delegation. So I'm gonna start my speech off real quick. SYEP, obviously we love this program, but we have to reimagine youth employment in the city. We just have to. It just can't continue to be this way, because again, we even in Crossroads yesterday, they're like, Miss, when I get out, I need a job, and and we are not offering that to them. So it's a program that we obviously love and we want to keep, but we also need to, at the same time, walk and chew gum, reimagine workforce for young people, because this is not enough. And I know we've like extended Work, Learn, Grow, but it still has restrictions there. But I think holistically, I mean, I met with the chancellor, I met with her also yesterday, and we talked about the things that they're doing around workforce development. And so I really think that we all just need to come to the table to really come up with a comprehensive plan to talk about like how many internships we can provide, how many jobs we can provide, and all the things, because I am concerned. We are building out a facility at Horizon to add additional beds, which means if we build it, they will come, which means more young people will be in secure detention. Our close to home programs are busting out at the seams. So this is a problem, and we have to understand we are in a crisis, because we know that once they get touched by the juvenile system, they're going to stay there, and they're going to be a revolving door. So we as a collective have to come up with a real comprehensive plan, because every single young person is like, Miss, I need a job. You want me to be on the street? Give me a job. And they like, and I don't know why. Nobody wants a minimum wage job, but that's another story. So, hello, welcome to the dance. What is the target number for SYEP slots for 2026?
So we're aiming to serve over 100,000 across the whole system. Some of those slots live with DOE and CUNY, so DYCD is aiming to serve over 97,000 in our system.
Does the agency have plans to increase the slots for youth ages 16 to 24? No, right?
Increase over, no.
Okay, I think it's no. How many providers manage the SYEP slots?
We have 65 unique providers who hold 177 contracts across them.
So 65. How will the agency respond to federal administration's threats to cut off funding for DEI supporting organizations? Have the providers expressed concerns about the modifications to their DEI?
So we are moving forward. We have not, in any form or fashion, rolled back any DEI initiative in DYCD.
Have you had any talks? I know maybe agencies are feeling some type of...
We haven't had any concerns with DYCD in terms of our program and DEI. We have been in communications with our nonprofit partners to let them know that they should not have, although they do have concerns, that we are supporting them and we're moving forward with our programs.
Listen, I agree. That's ridiculous. And I know we've been winning in the courts, but I know that does not mean providers do not still feel uncomfortable, especially some organizations who are a lot more vocal about the work around diversity and equity and inclusion. So I think we just all need to work together.
And we will continue, and just, shout out to our providers who are doing SYEP Pride. That's one of the initiatives that the mayor had introduced in his State of the City about a year and a half ago, and we still continue to be able to push that program.
Recently, DYCD implemented a new policy to de-enroll SY employees, enrollees who did not complete the key work readiness task prior to July 1. This policy was initiated in efforts to reopen those slots for those applicants. How many students did the agency de-enroll in fiscal 2025?
So I can get you all of that info offline. I don't want to misspeak, but I will say that we were really excited about the policy because what we had seen in the past was that after we enrolled a young person, a lot of times they weren't showing up for the job, they weren't completing the work readiness training, and that slot was essentially going unfilled. And so what we were able to do last year was have several thousand more students participate in SYEP and fill slots when other young people didn't show up.
Is the agency tracking the applicants that are de-enrolled?
Yeah, absolutely. I have it for you. I can get it for you offline.
The deadline for the application submission was March 14, 2025. How many applications were received?
So that was the public deadline, but we are still actively recruiting in our special initiatives, so I don't have a final number for you yet. I will say that what I've seen so far is the numbers are really big. We have a lot of interest in the program this year. I expect that we will far exceed, I've already seen, we've exceeded the application number that we had last year, and I think it's going to keep growing.
Does DYCD include feedback from the youth who attended the SYEP program in its evaluation of the program?
Absolutely. Every program year, we do 2 surveys in the middle of the program and at the end of the program, and ask all sorts of questions from, did you feel supported through the program? Did you enjoy your employment experience? How was the pre-employment training? I mean, we have a whole host of questions. I could show you this.
How do you use that to continue to build out the program?
Yeah, my team goes deep into that every year. Everything from what we include in the pre-employment training portions, the curriculum and content, takes that into consideration in our conversation with employers and what we think young people need. I mean, a perfect example is that we saw that young people really wanted to be out in person when working, and so our numbers have moved in that direction. We have more and more in-person placements, coming out of COVID than we'd had over the last few years in response to what young people are telling us they want.
So this is one of the even with SYEP, one of my bigger pet peeves, which is the SYEP project-based learning program for youth 14 and 15, and they only get $700 for the summer. Has there been any consideration by the agency to increase the stipend?
At this time, no, Chair Stevens, there has not been any discussions regarding increasing the stipend.
What was the enrollment for 14, 15 years old last year?
Last year, we had over 25,000 young people enroll in the Younger Youth Program.
Did they all complete it? Do you have numbers of who stayed and who didn't?
I can get that to you, but the vast majority completed at least half of the hours, got half the stipend. Most completed the whole program.
$700 is really low. Eggs is $15, y'all. In the last committee hearing in fiscal 2026 preliminary budget, wait, hold on. Nope, wrong page. I'm missing a page. Seven. 1 second. I lost the page. 7. Thank you. Oh, I didn't lose it. I gave it away. Sorry. Just kidding. All right, back. Okay. I'm going to jump to Compass and Sonic. DYCD is preparing a new procurement for Compass and Sonic after-school programs in the next year, making the first since 2015. What conversations have the agency had with advocates regarding the redesign and reimagining youth programming? The Sonic program, I know we talked about not having the RFP, but not having a concept paper, but as we are building it out, what are we talking to programs about? I know you said that you were having focus groups. You had a couple of focus groups in prep for this. Just trying to see, are there other conversations that's going on to prepare for the concept paper that'll be coming out and stuff like that? Are we doing anything else?
There's just ongoing conversations around program models.
I have some questions regarding the fatherhood program. What type of outreach has DYCD made to reach the young men that is currently part of the fatherhood program?
Thank you, Chair. For the concept paper, which came out a while ago, and as you know, the request for proposals out in the street, the agency conducted a number of focus groups and interviews. So we talked to current participants, formerly served participants, as well as providers and advocates in New York City and elsewhere, actually. So we did solicit feedback from younger as well as older dads.
Does the agency track the outcome of men who exit the program?
We do. Initially, during their term of service and at the close of their term of service in the program, we asked about their satisfaction with the program and if they made the outcomes of the program.
How many men are enrolled in this program?
Currently, I forgot my paper. Go on one second.
No worries.
The current model serves 1,500 dads a year, and I just want to see if I have the current enrollment. I think we're at about 1,300 and so for this year. 1,350.
1,350. Where is the programs currently being provided, and do you have a breakdown by borough? And if you don't have it, can you send it?
I can follow up with you. We have programs in every borough, but I can follow up with you to give you.
And if possible, if you can break it down by council district. If not, we'll take just the boroughs.
Sure.
What is the attendance rate? You'll get back to me because when you send it over, if you can send over like the attendance rate for each of the locations and
Sure.
things like that.
Thank you.
How do you quantify the success of this program?
There's one key measure, which is the self-reported success of the dads themselves. So when they enter the program, they're asked a series of questions which you take as a baseline. What they characterize as the nature of the co-parenting relationship with whoever has custody of the children, how much time do they spend with the children, how much treasure or child support owed or arrears have they been able to contribute. And as they spend time in the program, we look to see for movement along those measures.
The additional $2.1 million in fiscal 2026 and $5 million in the out years for the program indicates the needs and success of the pilot program. Has the agency had conversations regarding implementing a similar program for mothers?
You want to?
Yes, we have. And one of the things that was important to us in building the RFP and the concept paper was to include mothers in the conversations. We're going to be leaning heavily on co-parenting and just really looking at the toolbox that are needed to have a successful co-parenting between the custodial and non-custodial dad and the mother. Yes, and we're going to continue to hear the voices of the mothers as well to make sure that every voice around is being heard. I also want to emphasize this, that we're looking and we've engaging in young men who are 18 and under, because we think that's also a level of complexities that we have not engaged in the past, which we will be engaging in the future.
So I wanted to say I'm really just happy to hear that the fatherhood program is thriving. I know we had a hearing about this, I think probably was like a year or so ago when we talked about this. Too often fathers are overlooked in this process and there's not a lot of services and supports for them. And so I think that this is a great initiative. I think also looking at teen parents is also important. I was a teen mom, and understanding that there was not a lot of services that was provided, not a lot of places to go. it's a lot of just figuring the things out. And so I do think as this is building out, I think the co-parent strategy is important. One of the things that I've been trying to take on since I got in office in my district specifically is doing more parent groups and parent sharings. Parents are struggling right now, especially when they don't know how to reach their young person and they're working and all these things. So there is a need for this. And so whatever supports that you guys need from me around like building things out, you guys know I'm a thought partner, but I do think that this is an important issue and topic. And even when we're thinking about like lack of supports around, not even lack of supports, but the lack of things that we have offered when we are talking about young people. If we're not helping and supporting the parents, sometimes it's null and void. So I'm really happy that this Father's Initiative is building out. Now we're talking about mothers, and honestly, just having a whole system around parenting, I think is necessary and a key piece that has been missing. And so as this is building out, I would love to be a part of it and continue
And
to do
in
this
addition
work.
to that, the family dynamic, right? Because we know if we're dealing with a young person who is 18 and under, or I just recently was part of a teen group over at Marcy Projects in Brooklyn, and we met with a few young people, 16-year-olds, 15-year-olds who have 1 and 2 children. So that family dynamics also extends to the legal guardians as well, right? Because the legal guardians are also struggling with resources and help.
Yep. So whatever I can do to be supportive, and if we need to get more money, because that's what I do best, let me know, because honestly, I think this is a big missing piece, because even when I'm going to community meetings and talking about public safety, I have parents who are like, my kid is out of control. I don't know what to do. And sometimes they just need a support network and a place to go to have these conversations. So I think this is a necessary and an important piece. I'm just gonna have a couple more questions about Train and Earn, and then we're gonna be done. Look at that. Look at that. We might be done early. How many providers are in the Train and Earn program? I know I've been having y'all go back and forth. They should have probably organized it. You know what, don't worry. Next year I will organize it to make sure y'all sit there and so y'all don't have to go back and forth, but.
It's okay, you're keeping us on our toes. So we recently did an RFP. We made 18 awards to Train and Earn providers.
Which boroughs and district has the highest attendance rates for this program?
I will get back to you on the specifics, but broadly, we're in, where you would expect us to be, Brooklyn, Bronx. Well, there are programs in all 5 boroughs.
How many young adults are currently enrolled in the Train and Earn program?
We are in the process of enrolling. Our enrollment goal is 1369 this year. I think we have between 300 and 400 right now, but it's actively enrolling, so that should go up every day.
How do attendees learn about this program?
So first and foremost, our providers are the point of contact for young people, so they're all on the ground recruiting. And we're working internally with our communications team to share that the program is recruiting always. So it's on our social media.
How would you rate the success of the program, and are there metrics that you are measuring to show its success?
Absolutely. So Train and Earn is funded by WIOA. Right? And WIOA comes along with some really specific measures that we're constantly looking at. So measurable skills gains for every participant in the program, job placements, at different points in time after they exit the program, credential attainments. All of those things are things that we measure and then course correct. But of course, this is a brand new set of providers, so they're just starting to enroll their programs now.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Look at that. Y'all made it through.
Yes.
We're all done for now. Oh, wait. Oh, look, someone's back. You snuck in there. Almost, sorry. Well, it ain't me. And make it quick, because I need to.
Make it quick, okay. And in fact, you may have asked this, so forgive if this is a repeat. Actually, 2 things. Wanted to put on the record that we know that the council's IOI record, the council's IOI initiative is $2.6 million, is managed by HRA. And so the 14.1 million DYCD IOI program is different. And I know you're going to get back to me, but I just wanted to state that for the record. The other quick question, which you may have answered, so forgive a repeat, but would DYCD be able to supply the council with a copy of their preliminary racial equity plan? Did we talk about this?
We did not, and it's surprising because the chair didn't even ask that.
She has to be sworn in. No, I did. Yours? Okay.
Thank you for the question. Yes. We will be happy to provide a copy of the preliminary plan once it is released. We've been working with the Mayor's Office of Equity and Racial Justice to finalize the plan, which our agency plan and all agency plans will be integrated into the citywide plan.
And would you be able to describe at all how the work of the agency works to reduce or perpetuate racial inequity?
That is the mission of DYCD. That is the focus of all of our initiatives.
I know you're a little ahead of other agencies and started that work in earnest, like agency-wide, many years ago. So I do recognize that, but we would definitely like to see the report and certainly how you are measuring kind of the metrics of that.
Absolutely, happy to share.
I think that's it. Thank you.
Well, thank you, and I'm sure Chair Williams will be happy that you asked that question. And we do want to see the report, and this is a citywide report because I believe at this point we are 465 days late with that, but that is not your fault because you said you did your part. So thank you for doing your part, and thank you for showing up here today. And we're really happy, and I'm happy that you guys got through it. People are smiling, and thank you. And we will take a 10-minute recess until we go back to ACS. Thank you.
Thank you.